The United States in another world. This video is purely for entertainment and does not infringe on copyrights or laws. The rights to the novel and image belong to the original author. We do not claim ownership. Don't like waiting and want to listen to this fanfic in full now? Subscribe to our Patreon, where you'll find the best fanfics. Chapter 101. Let the politics begin. 1650 June 7, 2020 CE 1125 Sun 38, 196 AE 40 miles from the forest of origin. The survivors of the Leader Security Company were tied up after they surrendered. We have 23 severely injured on our side and 11 severely injured elves. No need for additional helicopters for extraction. We only have 9 captured uninjured. 1745 June 7, 2020 CE Nashville, Tennessee. Jack noticed the words breaking news flashed across the TV. The White House has just announced that the president will be speaking soon in order to most likely declare an end to this war. Jack slightly frowned since that wasn't that much news. It was a war against a nation more than 70 years technologically behind. It was over before it started. He didn't expect many people to be overly celebratory about it or take notice at all. A Ginport, Bem Kingdom. A group of men sat around a table. One of the men stood up. The results were, as predicted, not in our favor. It is of most sense that those stinky peasants won't vote for us. At the head of the table, Duke Philpott looked sternly at the one who stood up. Earl Fawns, sit down. This is a meeting. Not one of your parties. Now, who put you in charge? You aren't even a duke anymore. None of us have titles anymore. But we will address each other as if we didn't lose them. Understood? Now sit down, Earl Fawns grumbled as he sat. The Duke shook his head. Now, do any of you have anything else you would like to share before we begin? Baron Pettit spoke out. Duke Philpott, I have a proposition. The Duke nodded. Should we join forces with the monarchist party? The Duke frowned as Earl Fawns chuckled. Earl Corbould responded. They are just a bunch of wealthy peasants who bribe the king. Once they realize they can do the same thing with a democracy, they will turn on us. A few murmurs rose up and the nobles in the room started random discussions. Duke Philpott raised his voice. Quiet. Quiet. Enough with the acting gentlemen. We all know what we want. Baron Bacon shook his head. It isn't possible, the Duke smiled. It is. These Americans will leave eventually, and how are you certain they are going to leave? Before I lost my title, I was able to come upon the previous king discussing with the Americans about their planned withdrawal after the country became a democracy. I didn't hear everything, but I'm sure they are planning to leave. And how are you planning to do this? Our personal armies have all been disbanded. I have a few of my most loyal personal knights at my beck and call. I'm sure you all still have those who greatly favor you, and we can always find dissenters to fill the rest of our ranks. All the fallen nobles looked at each other. So, it's agreed. It's time to gather an army then. Once these Americans leave, we will strike. Now, meeting. Earl Fawns stood up and interjected. But what about afterwards? The Duke narrowed his eyes. What do you mean afterwards? The Americans won't miraculously disappear after we overthrow the current government. They will be back and we have no power to stop them. I'm sure you have seen their weapons of war. The room fell silent. 0244 June 8, 2020 CE 0422 Sun 39, 196 AE Port City of Philanis, Elven Nation. Anfilin spoke into the Magi radio microphone. The war is over. Taran Venharis has been arrested and will be judged for his crimes against the sentient and his reckless pursuit of war. Elves, I hate to say this but the truth has to be said, hard times are upon us. We have lost nearly a half of our population. Our cities have been devastated and our capital city has been sunk underwater. But we will rebuild. As the new leader of the Elven Nation, I shall guide us back to the old glory days of the Elven Kingdom. A prosperous and peaceful nation. Anfilin greeted the American delegation. Before we begin, I want to know, when will your forces start leaving? The head of the delegation, Ambassador Henry Cole, frowned. President Inanis, you have to understand, we cannot leave immediately, but I promised my elves that. Your promise is your promise. We only promise to leave once the current situation is over. Anfilin raised an eyebrow. But it is over. You still have rogue elements in your country. We can deal with it ourselves, you are sure? Anfilin slightly frowned. We know you don't have an army and are in no position to fight even against rogue units. Anfilin fell quiet for a few seconds, took a deep breath, and sighed. I understand that. Sorry. That was unreasonable of me. I'm under a lot of pressure right now, we understand that. Once the last of the rogue units have surrendered and you have created a force capable of keeping the peace, we will leave. That is good to hear. This leads me to the main thing I'm here about, the treaty, correct? The ambassador nodded. Usually, the terms will be discussed between delegates from both nations. However, you have expressed the wish to directly negotiate it. Is that true? Yes, my current government is being set up and I'm not sure who to trust and who has the ability to do this. Then let's begin with the talks. 30 minutes later we will keep Terran in our custody and we'll decide what will happen to him at a later date. Anfalin nodded. I would prefer you have executed him so we don't have anyone who thinks they can put the leader back in power. We don't want to make a martyr either. But we will hold off on what to do with him. With that out of the way, here comes the harder part of our demands. Anfalin slowly spoke. Go ahead, my government is looking at placing a brigade-strength military unit here in order to keep an eye on things. Anfalin stood up in an instant. What? He sat back down quickly and took a second before talking again. Then what's the point of you promising me you will leave if you actually aren't? I only say we are looking into it. We are also looking into leaving completely. But we want to ensure that you elves don't start another war. Anfalin chuckled. We have literally been devastated. Our economy and population is gone. We can't start another war, but I'm pretty sure your country has a few that won't be afraid to. Anfalin became quiet. I'm afraid so, but as long as I'm in power, I promise you, there won't be any aggression from us. I will rebuild this country and I will clean up the brainwashing that Terran and his father did. We can't just take your word for this. And we aren't sure how long you can stay in power. I will stay in power for as long as I can. And you are sure you are able to keep a country of fanatics under control? You are very susceptible to an assassination or coup attempt. Not all elves are fanatics. Henry didn't say anything. Anfalin pursed his lips. Okay, look, if the situation gets bad, I will inform your government and ask for help. But I will not allow any humans on our land during times of peace. There will be severe consequences for everyone if I do. This isn't a threat. This is just a fact. Henry nodded. I will pass this along to my government. Good. What else? We would also like to continue providing aid to your nation. You will not have to pay it back. We hope that by doing this, we can improve relations with elves. I cannot decide on that right now. Anfalin was stuck between a rock and a hard place. He knew that he needed that aid, but the problem was that it came from humans. He himself didn't care, but that didn't matter. The average elf would care. The food aid that the Americans were providing were already being avoided by some of the elves. Somewhere in the elven nation target is direct front. Fire. The stallion that was racing across the fields burst into flames as a shot from the Abrams tank went through it. Good. That should be the last of them in this area. They really suck at guerrilla tactics. It won't be long before we are sent back home. Man, I can't wait. The native population here is just too hostile. Chapter 102 Negotiations, Demands, and Reconstruction. 0644 June 8, 2020 CE 0622 Sun 39th, 196 AE Port City of Philanis, Elven Nation. This has been quite the productive meeting, President Inaniris. We have gone a bit over time, and we would also like to contact our government for further instructions, so we shall continue this tomorrow. Anfalin looked at Henry's outstretched hand questionably. Sorry, it is an etiquette for Americans to shake hands at either the start or end of an important meeting. Noted. Anfalin stood up to shake Henry's hand. Thank you, Americans. I hope we come to a final treaty soon. Thank you, President Inaniris. I hope so too. I would also like to inform you that the delegation from the Magus Imperium will also be arriving tomorrow. Anfalin thought for a few seconds before raising his eyebrow. And which country is that? Henry chuckled a bit. The country your nation had invaded. A worried look washed over Anfalin's face. Yes. The Magus Imperium. I nearly forgot. Noting Anfalin's expression, Henry nodded. Do not worry. Their demands will not be over the top. We understand that your nation is currently suffering. We have requested that they do not demand any land concessions. However, they may require payment for damages that you have caused. As soon as the Americans left, Anfalin immediately called in his aides. They had a lot of work to do. Thabal, Elven Nation. Thabal was a city that was untouched by the war since it was on the other side of the mountain. An elf messenger carrying a satchel hanging from his shoulder knocked on the door of a house. An elf female answered the door. The messenger looked at the letter he held. Ms. Rowran. Yes, what is it? He handed the letter to her. I'm sorry to inform you that your husband has died in the service of his country." A shocked expression passed over her face as her hand holding the letter trembled. The messenger lowered his cap to cover his eyes. "I'm sorry for your loss." The messenger left and traveled 2 houses away to knock on another door. With such a large number of deaths, it took time for the news of it to reach her family member. In fact, Anthelin had to set up a system in order to speed up the process. Messengers were hired to be in charge of delivering it at their jurisdictions whenever they received the letters. It wasn't long before they were called the messengers of grief. Abellinum, Magus Imperium Emperor Arstan watched as people scurried around. The sound of hammers and the clanking of machines were everywhere. Rubble littered the ground of a once bustling city. Buildings have just begun taking shape again. Emperor Arstan listened to his head economic advisor who had a grim look. This will take a year or so to completely rebuild. Probably more for the people to come back. How much damage has all this done to our economy? The entire southern region has taken a massive hit. It is predicted that there will be more than a 90% reduction in regional productivity. We are also afraid that the entire southern region is vulnerable to a famine. Although originally self-sufficient, the amount of farms and cropland torched by the elves have slashed food production by nearly 75%. We need to send food from the northern region southward. Do we have enough? The economic advisor looked through his notepad. To prepare for the worst, we are thinking of implementing a ration. However, I'm hoping we can demand food from the elves. I will add that onto the list of demands. 1022 June 8, 2020 CE White House. Quincy walked beside the president as they went down the hallway in the White House. Aren't we being a bit too lenient here? They wanted to enslave all of humanity and would have succeeded if we weren't here. The elves are one hell of a powder keg. If we push it, it's just going to explode in our face. We won the war. Why do we have to be so cautious? We have to reshape these elves whether they like it or not. Set up a military government. Show them who is in charge now. Quincy, after our experience in the Middle East, nobody in their right mind will want to take on this mess. I don't want to be remembered as the president who created another Afghanistan or Iraq. I'm actually glad there is somebody sensible in charge of the elves. You are taking a risk with it, Anthelin. I'm willing to take that risk lest we be dragged into another endless war. 1645 June 8, 2020 CE Washington, D.C. In a park, Quincy sighed as a man in a t-shirt and sweatpants sat down beside him. Trevor, I'm getting sick and tired of these meetings that I have to travel to. We don't want to risk having someone listening in on our conversation on the phone. I won't be surprised if your phone is bugged. You know that as well as I do that this is the best place. Not many people. No cameras. We can see our surroundings, not suggesting we change. Just complaining. So how did it go? I couldn't convince him. Give me some time. Trevor looked around before continuing. General, I want you to remember there's a couple $1 million for you on the line here. Quincy put his head back onto the bench and looked at the sky. Don't worry. I will find a way. I always have. I have heard plans that Congress wants to decrease the military budget. That cannot happen. With no more countries to export to, my company needs that money. Understood? You will get your contracts. I promise. Just continue developing those jets. You don't have to worry about anything. Good. The CEO expects to see results. 0332 June 9, 2020 CE 0446 Sun 40th, 196 AE Port City of Philanis, Elven Nation. The members of the American delegation looked behind them as the door to Anthelin's office opened. Anthelin stood up. Welcome. The delegation from the Magus Imperium, I presume. I'm President Ananus, the current leader of the elves. The Americans have informed me of your arrival today. The Magusians barely acknowledged Anthelin as they walked in and sat down in the chairs that had been prepared for them. I'm head diplomat Jeff Benedict. We are here not to negotiate but to demand compensation. I understand that, and I would like to apologize on behalf of all elves for what we have done. Jeff's frown deepened. Thousands are dead and tens of thousands are without homes. All major cities in the southern region of my country are nothing but ashes and rubble. An apology will not suffice. What are your demands? A delivery of 1 million tons of agricultural foodstuff once every year for the next 2 years. A total of 2 million tons of steel, bricks, and wood, each 500 tons of gold, 250 tons of silver. Other than the food, we expect them to be delivered to us within 4 years. Blueprints for every single weapon design. Guns, ships, magic tanks, everything. We also hope to receive intact and working weapons 100 Magitanks 6,000 small arms of each type 1,000 of each type of Thuggen, which includes artillery, anti-tank, and anti-air. 2 of your latest battleships, 1 carrier, 5 cruisers, 5 destroyers, and 10 submarines 100 of each type of military aircraft. We also expect manuals on how to use all of them. These are our main demands. More minor demands are included in these documents. Jeff threw a heap of papers onto the table. The room fell silent. Anfelin's face was of pure shock. Even the Americans were showing some shock. Anfelin quickly okay. I will say this right now. Some of these demands can't be possibly met. We are willing to change some of these demands. However, the result will be under our terms. Somewhere in the elven nation Terran looked grimly around his cell. After being thrown onto the helicopter and flown for a few hours to some city, he was then locked into a cell. There were human guards who constantly kept watch on him. He mulled over his current situation while sitting in a corner. He couldn't believe it. He lost. He lost everything even though it went so well at the beginning. He was supposed to be the chosen one to lead the elves to victory. 60 miles from the Forest of Origin, Aero walked up to Vudun. Glad to see that you are okay, Field Marshal. You can drop the honorifics now. It's over, Aero nodded. What was it all for? Vudun looked up to the sky. One elf's hatred. Aero thought about it for a few minutes before replying. I guess that was all it was. They watched as the elves who had been led by Vudun started dispersing. They had all been disarmed but were not taken prisoner. The elven officers, like Aero, had to stay. The officers had all been transported to Vudun to make sure everyone was present. Aero turned to Elric who was beside her. Colonel. Want to go for a drink after all this is over? We are prisoners of war. I'm not sure if we will be able to see each other. The war is over. All we have left to do is answer these humans some questions and then go home. Aero stopped at that. Hey, Colonel, do you have a house? Yes. Why are you asking? Aero chuckled. I got disowned by my parents and kicked out of their house for expressing my wish to have a career in the military and not marrying. I also never bought a house. You were a major general and you never bought a house? Your pay would have been more than enough. Aero rubbed her neck. Never thought I needed it. I would have bought one after I retired. But my retirement kind of came early, as you can see. I also don't think houses are that common now. Chapter 103 The Homefront. 0755 June 10, 2020 CE Kansas. Keith led his horse back to the stable. He found his father in the house making himself coffee in the kitchen. Dad, I heard you hired a lot more new employees and bought a few acres of new land. Are you sure we are able to cover the costs? His father took a sip from his mug. People can't import crops no more, so us farms have to do more work. I'm expecting a lot of demand this year. Keith poured himself a cup of coffee. There are rumors that companies are trying to find replacements though, taking a gamble here. I don't expect any place on this world to have the capacity to fulfill what our country needs. They sat down drinking. I'm a bit worried about you, Dad. I'm already 32 years old. Let me help you manage the farm. Keith's father chuckled. I told you I won't let you have the farm until I kick the bucket. I may be getting old but I still have some energy in my bones. All right, Dad, I will go tend to the pigs. You will never stop asking, will ya? Nope. Until you agree. Keith's father chuckled again. In your dreams. 0815 June 10, 2020 CE 0707 Sun 40th, 196 AE Port City of Philanis, Elven Nation. For your main demands, here's what I can do. The demanded gold, silver, steel, wood, and bricks in 4 years, the military blueprints, and the manuals. Anfelin stopped. The 1 million tons of agricultural foodstuffs is difficult, if not impossible. We have suffered population loss of nearly 50%, and I'm not sure what the state of my country's farms are like at the moment. We are currently depending on American aid. I also cannot guarantee the intact and working weapons. Our weapons inventory has been greatly depleted. From my knowledge, the small arms and Thuggen should be possible. However, the ships and planes are not possible, seeing that most of them have been destroyed. Jeff frowned. The 1 million tons of agricultural foodstuff is non-negotiable. We do not have enough to feed our population since you elves burned down almost all the cropland we had in the south. As I said, we are depending on American aid. We also do not have enough to feed our population. I'm sorry. I'm not able to help you with that. Well, you elves should have thought about that before starting a war. I may have a solution. Both turned to look at Henry. My country may be able to cover some of the foodstuffs. We are already providing aid to you elves. We should also be able to provide food to the Magus Imperium. However, I currently cannot give exact figures on how much. 1345 June 10, 2020 CE Washington, D.C. President Hayes was being informed of all the agreed terms so far. A pullout of all U.S. forces once rogue elements have been dealt with. The aide stopped to let the president speak. I know this is something we said as a term, but I really have a bad feeling about this part. I would like us to leave as fast as possible. Carlson shook his head. We can't just abandon them. They don't have a functioning military capable of countering the rogue units. I just don't want ourselves to get into another decade-long war. I want us to leave this powder keg as soon as possible. Not every insurgency will turn into that, and I fully believe in the military's capabilities against an already defeated enemy that is 70 years technologically behind. The aide waited for them to stop so he could continue on about the terms. In the ocean, a fishing ship 50 miles away from New York hauled in their net. Quite a good catch we have today. The newest member of the crew, Paul, checked out the fish in the net. Hey Curtis, the fish really look odd. These are redfin tuna. They have the looks of one but are not actually tuna. Tastes a bit different too. Isn't that name a bit misleading? People didn't want to make up new fish names, and we don't know what the people of this world name their fish. It's good for business too. Is there supposed to be a hole in the redfin tuna? Huh? No. Untie the net, let me take a look. Paul pointed to the fish that had a gaping hole right through its side. Huh? As Curtis studied the fish, Paul gave a shout. Hey, guys, there's quite a lot of fish like that in here. Damn it, there goes our profits. Guys, could this be the rumored kraken? We are well outside the restricted areas and this hole seems small for something like a kraken. Atlanta, Georgia. In an office room, a few people sat around a long rectangular table. A person at the head of the table started talking. The impact of being transferred here has just started to mellow. Domestic sales have kept us afloat, but we had to lay off a few hundred employees. We are hoping to start expanding operations into other countries soon. Has the government agreed to let us begin expansion? There are still restrictions on travel, but we are sure we will be able to begin in 3 months. The people in the marketing department have a concern though. We have to test the taste of the people in this world. They are not sure if our current lineup of products will suit the tastes of the people here. Especially the different species. I heard the McDonald's in the BEM Kingdom have been getting good sales on Coca-Cola and Sprite. That is only one country out of many and they are populated by humans. We will definitely try to identify possible local flavors. We will offer up our current lineup before beginning to present local flavors. Somewhere in the northern frontier a group of people trekked through the forest. Are you sure there is gold up here? I don't feel comfortable in such foreign places. Just don't eat any of the plants or whatever. According to the EPA, there's no animals here, so there shouldn't be anything to creep you out. Aren't the EPA and CDC still operating here to make sure there isn't any weird stuff? Are you sure we can be here? They are just making sure there are no harmful and invasive plants or insects or whatever. This land is full of natural resources and the government is selling it to companies. We common folk have to stake a claim too. I thought we were just here to find gold. Why are we talking about land all of a sudden? You are thinking so small, brother. Just grabbing some gold and leaving? No. We claim the land where we found the gold. That land will be rich with it and we will be rich too. They soon happened upon an open field. Pretty sure this is corporate land. ExxonMobil, maybe, multiple oil derricks dotted the field. Ain't what we are searching for. Let the corporations go for black gold. We are going for real gold here. Come on, let's not get too close. We don't want to be spotted. 1345 June 10, 2020 CE 1036 Sun 40th, 196 AE Industropoulos. Mark Imperium Pomponia had a very unhappy face as she greeted the American diplomat. I'm getting sick and tired of being here. You promised me I will be able to step down soon, yet here I am. Still on the throne. The diplomat nodded. Apologies for that. We have run into issues on what to do for your country. Establishing a unified democratic state holds great potential to create unrest which we seek to avoid. How about you place another monarch here instead of me? One more willing to rule. We are seeking ways to break up the imperium into a collection of independent democratic states along cultural and ethnic lines. Keeping a monarch is not looked upon well in my country. However, it is possible for a monarch to remain as a figurehead. I just want to quit and go back to my house. Just get me off of this throne. I swear if I have to spend another year with these noble assholes and their haughty parties. 1345 June 10, 2020 CE 1036 Sun 41st, 196 AE Port City of Philanis, Elven Nation. I am hoping that by meeting your country's demands, that your country will allow the return of Elven prisoners of war. I have been informed that most of the prisoners are being held by your country. Jeff turned to the other Magusian diplomats. Henry interrupted. My government insists that you agree upon this. More elves returned means that the elves will have more capabilities to provide you with the demanded materials. Moreover, keeping these elves locked up is a waste of resources and food that could be used to feed your own population. Chapter 104 Conspiracies. 0604 June 11, 2020 CE 0602 Sun 41st, 196 AE. A prison in the Magus Imperium. Simon languished on the bed in his cell. If not for the small barred window, he would have lost count on how many days he had been stuck in his cell. If he was right, it had been 8 days since he was allowed outside. At least they haven't forgotten to feed him. However little it was. Suddenly, there was banging. The door to his cell opened. Get out here, you elves. War's over. As he walked out, Simon noted the crowded surroundings. Human soldiers were everywhere and armed to the teeth. The warden appeared in the middle of the hall. We will be escorting you out of here. You are all going home. Now, behave yourselves. Do not dare try to attack us. You all lost the war, you hear me? If you do, we will kill you and we will find any of your family and kill them too. Understood? The warden didn't wait for a reply and looked at the still closed cells down the hall. Now, you boys will be let out once they leave. Can't have all of you out at once. 1822 June 11, 2020 CE. On the streets in Arlington, Virginia, 2 men flanked Daniel in the streets. One of them looked at him. Are you Daniel McCormick? Yes. What may I do for you too? He lowered his voice. We need you to come with us. We are with the FBI. He showed his badge. Daniel instantly froze as his mind went into panic mode. He took a deep breath and barely said a word. Okay, they led him to a nondescript black car. They entered the car and the agents started driving. The other man started talking. We have found out that you have discovered some information that was supposed to stay confidential. If you release that information, you will be considered committing treason. Daniel nodded. Do not report it under any circumstance. There will be consequences. Do not try to hand it over to the media. We will be monitoring you. Daniel nodded again. The car stopped. Now get out. Daniel looked around as he exited the car. He was in front of his house. Daniel fumbled with his keys and opened the door to his house. Then he stopped. Cold dread filled him. He remembered something that he was too panicked during the car ride to tell them. He had already sent the information to the FBI. He shut his door and started rationalizing to try to calm himself. It was to their organization, so it should be fine. And he sent it before they even came to talk to him. Maybe it was even the tip that caused them to approach him. If not, he was probably going to have a meeting with them quite soon, but hopefully they would let him off the hook. A few minutes later, the agent driving laughed. Well, that guy was scared shitless. His legs seemed to have turned into jello. I don't think we have anything to worry about. And here I was afraid this dude would be more resistant. An hour later, Pentagon. Good job, you two. The 2 FBI agents sat down. And when are we getting paid? I have struck a nice deal with a certain corporation. Once the money comes in, I will pay you 2 handsomely. The agents nodded. Understood, General. Quincy looked at both of them. Not threatening me. It's bad for business, you know. And this isn't Hollywood, huh? Never thought there would be anything as handy as corrupt FBI agents. Corrupt is a loaded word, General. We prefer capitalistic. White House MR. President, this is from the FBI and is classified confidential. They recently received a tip that someone was tampering with the civilian casualty reports. Upon further investigation by the FBI, this seems to hold true. Civilian casualty reports? Were the numbers faked? Yes. The numbers are much smaller than reality. I want a corrected version as soon as possible. Classify that as confidential. I want to see it before anybody else. President Haye's face grew pale as he skimmed through the papers in the file. These numbers, this can't get out to the media or any public report. Understood? Tell the FBI to keep it under wraps. Find the guy who reported this. When did the data start being manipulated? From the earliest reports, it seems to be a couple days after the military begun landings on the Elven nation. Does the FBI have a suspect for who is tampering with the data? None so far, but they are looking into logs connected with the tampered data. Tell them to put more people on it. People who can keep their mouths shut. This will be a political shitshow if it gets out. I don't want to be the president who gets remembered for authorizing the killings of thousands of innocent Magoosians. And get me Quincy. He needs to explain what the hell is with his collateral damage. Were we firing artillery and dropping bombs indiscriminately? Wait. Don't get him. Actually, don't inform any member connected to the military. Someone from there could be the one who did this. 0128 June 12, 2020 CE 0344 Sun 42nd. 196 AE Primopolis, Magus Imperium. Renault waited near the entrance of the refugee processing center. A soldier guarding the gate walked to him. Look, Renault. You should go home. There's no point sitting out here. The higher-ups are about done with you too. I don't have a home to go to. I just have to wait. I know they will be back, Renault. I know you have a job and home now. I don't want to actually kick you out like I'm supposed to. Settle down. Don't spend all your free time waiting here. Find some friends. Maybe a wife even. Renault didn't answer. Tell you what? I will ask around occasionally to see if any Hewitts came through here. I will visit you the moment I'm informed. Renault still refused to respond. Look, Renault. You have been here every single day, and it's gotten to the point that I know you by name. Don't you see how ridiculous this is? If I don't kick you out, they are just going to send someone else who will use actual force. If you take my offer, you will still get informed. You get what you want, and I don't need to either bully you or get fired from my job. Fine. 0450 June 12, 2020 CE 0525 Sun 42nd. 196 AE Port City of Philanes. Henry invited the Magoosian diplomats for an U.S. Magoosian-only discussion. After the greetings, Henry gave the Magoosians an announcement. My government has agreed to provide food aid. However, we will not be sending as high as your original offer. My countrymen need that food. And if you can't supply that, the elves will. Your countrymen do not need that much. We are willing to supply up to 500,000 tons of food a year for the next 2 years. Anything in excess of that will be utterly ridiculous and does not reflect the needs of your population. We know what you are trying to do, Jeff hissed. The elves are supposed to be punished for their wrongdoings. We have all punished them enough. Their country is in ruins. They are being forced to give over resources and military information. To starve their population would only incite future conflict. 1403 June 12, 2020 CE Kansas. Keith. Have you heard? The government is sending even more food aid. I knew this would pay off. Keith glanced at his dad. It's only going to the large corporations, Dad. They won't ask such a small farm like ours, don't you get it? Those corporations will be too busy trying to fulfill those government orders that the local markets are gonna turn to small farms. This is the jackpot. Woohoo! Keith's father started doing a weird dance. Somewhere in the Pacific Ocean dive, the USS Cheyenne and Los Angeles-class submarine started going deeper into the ocean. Chapter 105. The world inked black and white. 1024 June 13, 2020 CE Pentagon. Multiple men entered Quincy's office. Quincy looked up in a jolt but quickly put a smile on his face. What can I do for you fine gentlemen? One of them spoke. General. We need you to come with us. May I know what for? One of them showed their FBI badges. We have a warrant for your arrest for suspicions of corruption and intentionally falsifying government documents. Quincy chuckled. And you have evidence for this? The agent nodded. We have someone who has confessed and linked it to you. You can't arrest me just because someone said I did it. The agents approached him. In addition to that, we have more than enough proof to convict you. Face the wall, in an interrogation room at FBI headquarters, Washington, D.C. Quincy looked up from his handcuffs as a person flanked by Secret Service agents entered the room. Ah, Mr. President, how nice to see you. I can't say so myself, Quincy. Ronell sat down as the door closed. Quincy, you betrayed me. You betrayed the oath you swore. You betrayed this country. Quincy frowned a bit. I have been loyal to this country all my life, and I believe all my actions have been done on its behalf. I feel no guilt for my actions. Ronell shook his head. You are a lucky bastard. We will be handing you a lighter sentencing, but the information about civilian casualties must never be revealed. Your career is ruined, Quincy smiled. And what if I tell everybody about this? How are you going to stop me? You will be sentenced for charges of treason, and you think that will stop me? You can take what we are giving you right now. Serve a few years in prison, get out, and live your life. Or we can convict you of treason and make you serve life in prison. White House Tom Nolan, the FBI director, sat across from Ronell. Mr. President, are you sure about this? If I do reveal this information, sure he will get what he deserved, but the collateral damage would not be negligible. We are talking about domestic outcry, and if it spreads outside, straining of foreign relations. If I could kill that bastard I would, but goddammit, we live in a civilized country. We can make him disappear, sir. Even though it has been rare, we have made people disappear before. God no. That's a line that I will hopefully never cross. I hope so too. We usually only do it to those who endanger national security to an extreme degree. 1355 June 13, 2020 CEA Corporate Office in the U.S. The FBI have found plausible evidence but have not declared who the now former general has taken bribes from. The court date currently has yet to be set, but it is currently predicted that he may face multiple years in prison. The arrest has sent shockwaves through the government. General Griffith was considered a close friend of the president. The TV was shut down. A man sitting behind a desk shook his head. Truly disappointing. He got caught. Another man standing nearby spoke. Doesn't matter. It won't be traced back to us. I made sure of it, the sitting man waved. I'm not worried about that. You have always been good with this. Such a shame though. We still have a couple of congressmen under our thumbs, so we should get that approval nonetheless. Would have been nice to have more people in the Pentagon on our side too. Especially the fact Quincy has so many connections. Maybe we can try with a different one, or whoever is replacing him. Let's lay low for a bit. The government will turn a blind eye if we don't act up for now. The standing man nodded. But we really need more people in. We have really taken a hit from not being able to sell to foreign countries anymore. Even our country has a limit to the amount of weapons it can buy. We don't want to bankrupt our only customer. What about foreign countries in this world? I have tried to convince them to let us sell our weapons to the people of this world, but they were extremely against it. It's a tall order. People are going to find it suspicious that there are congressmen willing to sell high-tech weaponry to basically barbarians, somewhere in the northern frontier. Soldiers, with rifles drawn, wearing baggy clothes and gas masks, approached them. Hands in the air. You are all under arrest for trespassing on restricted land. The group raised their hands. Fuck you and your corporations. A few minutes later, the soldiers loaded them onto Humvees. Where are you taking us? To a medical facility. You will be put under quarantine. This is for your health and safety. You will also be interrogated. Huh. So concerned about our health and safety. Yet you let these corporate bastards roam around taking all the good stuff. All company employees have to wear protective suits while operating here. You are violating the law, so you will be charged upon return to the States. White House. In the Oval Office, the president spoke to Austrian Rhodes, the director of the CDC. I am concerned about the returning soldiers. You are certain we do not need to take heavier measures to ensure that an unknown disease will spread here? I mean, you recommended that I authorize the use of protective equipment in the northern frontier, yet you show no concern about our soldiers being deployed on unknown land elsewhere. Mr. President. From what we have learned from the natives' records of diseases, there should not be anything concerning. There are many diseases with similar symptoms as the diseases in our world. From what we have seen, the anatomy of the humans in this world are exactly the same as ours. If a soldier did catch anything, it would most likely be the common cold. We have yet to discover any overly concerning diseases which we do find strange. This world does not seem to have smallpox or any worse infectious disease. It's delightful but concerning at the same time. Then why are we so concerned about the northern frontier if the diseases are similar and there's nothing actually concerning? From what native records state, humans have not stepped foot on that place for nearly 1,000 years. We have no idea what could be up there. It is supposedly devoid of animals, but it is vital that we are certain. For all we know, there could be a small animal carrying around this world's smallpox. 1424 June 13, 2020 CE. Hundreds of miles away from Hawaii, Pacific Ocean, the USS Cheyenne continued on its exercises. A sonarman looked surprised as his sonar screen went off. Captain. We are detecting multiple signatures on the sonar. Fast moving. Seems to be torpedoes heading straight towards us. The captain of the USS Cheyenne, a testament to his experience and training, quickly started ordering commands. Engage countermeasures. Acoustic decoys were deployed from the submarine and jammers tried to confuse the incoming torpedoes. Dive. 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 The submarine started diving further down. The blips on the sonar screen got closer and closer. The sonarmen stared, hoping that the blips would pass over them. The submarine jolted as the torpedoes slammed into it. 1500 June 13, 2020 CE White House. An aide ran up to Ronell in a hallway. Mr. President. Urgent report. We lost contact with a USS Cheyenne, a Los Angeles-class submarine, a couple hundred miles away from Hawaii. It was doing exercises by itself. Ronell frowned. Are we certain it's not any communication error or some equipment malfunction? We have lost contact with them for the past 30 minutes. We are currently dispatching ships for search and rescue. Could it possibly be those sea creatures that have been plaguing us? We are not certain at this time, sir, but if it is, it will be well outside their usual zones, sir. Inform the members of the National Security Council of the situation. I want to stay updated on this. Inform me the moment we get anything new. How many sailors were on that submarine? It has a crew of 129. What ships are on search and rescue? Various ones from the U.S. Navy and U.S. Coast Guard. I am not able to give you the specifics of much. Get me Quing. Get me the Vice Chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, Nelson Byrd. No. I meant the one that's now Chairman. Stephen Decker, Chapter 106. The incident. 1509 June 13, 2020 CE Washington, D.C. While walking towards the Oval Office, Ronell ran into the Chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff. Stephen. I know you haven't had much time to settle down on this unexpected promotion, but the current situation is worrisome. What's happening? I need details. All we know is that the USS Cheyenne has not responded to attempts to communicate with it after it missed its scheduled status report. The only three scenarios where this is possible is either the communication equipment broke, they have sunk, or a mutiny occurred. I don't believe a mutiny is likely, so we are between the first two probabilities and going under the assumption that they have sunk. They entered the Oval Office where the Carlson was already there. Mr. President, Carlson, I have been informed what's happening. We don't know much, do we? As much as anybody other than the submarine crew themselves knows. We know the general area of where the submarine sank. According to the Chief of Naval Operations, they were conducting regular exercises there. Are we certain that the submarine has sunk? Carlson shook his head. We have to expect the worst. Ronell's face looked grim. Stephen, if they are sunk, what are the crew's chances of survival? If they have, it's slim. If they met an accident while on the surface, then it's likely we can save them. But they were most likely submerged. Depending on how far they have sunk, we may not be able to rescue them. In addition, based on the amount of damage the submarine took, oxygen production could have been knocked offline and they could be running out of oxygen. I cannot say much more until our ships arrive. What ships are we sending? Carlson answered. The USNS Impeccable is en route. They are an ocean surveillance ship capable of searching for undersea objects in a wide range. We also have multiple Arleigh Burkes that have been stationed in Hawaii too. P-8 Poseidons, maritime patrol aircraft that can deploy sonar buoys, will be the first ones there. The Undersea Rescue Command has also already been deployed. They are trained specifically for rescuing crews of disabled submarines. They are currently en route with a Haas Dominator that's carrying a submarine rescue diving recompression system which can rescue the crews. 30 minutes later they had quickly moved into the Situation Room. Ronell stood with his hands on his hips as he watched the screens that displayed the data coming from the sonars. They have detected what we believe is to be the USS Cheyenne. It has only slightly deviated from its planned route, but it's sinking. Good news is that it is still within range for rescue. Bad news is that it's sinking fast. They are only about 1,000 feet down, but the SRDRS only has a range of 2,000. We will have to get to them fast. 1625 June 13, 2020 CE submarine location in the Pacific. A submarine rescue diving recompression system, SRDRS, was lowered into the ocean from the Haas Dominator. 2 members of the Undersea Rescue Command went along in it. Washington, D.C. Ronell watched the camera feed from the SRDRS as it was lowered to the submarine. There were holes on the side of the USS Cheyenne. It doesn't look good, Stephen nodded. There still could be survivors. It's equipped with watertight doors that can seal off flooded areas. From what I have seen, those holes seem to be a match. It is definitely done by that damned sea creature. Carlson, I want a restriction on all submarine activities in the Pacific. Call them back to their home ports." A few minutes later, there was a video feed from the commanding naval officer of the rescue operation on screen. "We have confirmed survivors from the IRC. The SRDRS is being attached to the submarine hatch to get them out. Excellent work, Admiral." The people in the situation room watched as the SRDRS started positioning itself on the hatch that was at the back on the long end of the submarine where the engine room was situated. Haggard sailors started coming into the SRDRS. Once full with 16 people, it started its ascent. Clapping started. On the screen, the SRDRS started its descent again in order to rescue more crew. The officer on live video looked grim after receiving a report. "Mr. President, we are expecting casualties. It's likely more than 90 deaths. It seems only the sailors in the engine room survived." A heavy silence fell on the room. An hour later, Dr. Munoz, the biologist hired to help identify the mysterious sea creature, was in the situation room. The screen had been set to a bunch of slides. A photo showed up on screen. It was similar to a swordfish, but its nose was much larger and connected from the skull to the jaw. From studying the damage done by it, we have made what we believe is a possible model of the sea creature that is currently attacking us. I do not guarantee this is correct, but it's our best scientific guess. For all we know, it could be the tentacles of a giant sea monster. But if we are correct, we are currently identifying it as the lancetfish because of its semblance to a swordfish, except with a lance instead of a sword as its nose. Ronell posed a question. "And how is it drilling holes through the sides of ships and submarines?" "We are not exactly sure, but we believe that its nose is as strong as tungsten. They vary in size. The largest capable of drilling a hole about a yard in diameter. The smallest is capable of drilling around a few inches." The biologist switched to a slide that showed the sizes of the lancetfish. Stephen asked next. "And how do we kill it?" "I would need a captured specimen in order to find a way to kill it. On that note, I believe that their presence is growing and it's concerning. The waters around us may soon become inaccessible." Dr. Munoz changed the slides to a GIF that showed swathes of red growing in the ocean surrounding the Formosan continent. Carlson nodded. "We did have reports of fishing ships catching fishes with holes in them in the Atlantic." Ronell sighed. "They have spread over there too." Carlson shrugged. "We aren't sure since it's only one occurrence and it's just fish." Dr. Munoz continued. "That is why we suggested that they vary in size. From photos, the fish seem to have been pierced in a similar fashion as the ships." Ronell shook his head. "Any idea on how we can find a specimen that can tear through metal like paper?" "It's not like we can catch it with a net. You probably will have to kill it in order for me to study it, so you need us to kill it for you to find a way to kill it." 1705 June 13, 2020 CE 1132 Sun 43rd, 196 AE Primopolis, Magus Imperium. An American diplomat bowed before Emperor Arstant. "Thank you for granting me this audience at such a late hour. No need for this. We are glad you have helped us against the elves and are supplying us with food. What do our American friends need? We are wondering if you have any knowledge of any sea creatures capable of drilling through metal." "I do not believe so." "Why do you ask?" "Our ships have come under attack by sea creatures capable of such, and we are hoping you would have any information." Arstant sat there thinking. "Let me call in one of my scholars knowledgeable on this." A few minutes later, a person in scholar robes stood beside the emperor. Other than the records of the large birds on the Formosan continent, there should be no other hostile creatures in that region. Most records of creature attacks come from the birds. I have never heard of any stories of attacking sea creatures capable of drilling through metal. 1822 June 13, 2020 CE Golden, Colorado. In the National Earthquake Information Center, the seismograph started printing out jagged lines going up and down. The geologists in the room started looking at that specific seismograph. "This is weird. This is from the seismic stations in Hawaii. What's weird about that? Isn't it usual for Hawaii to experience earthquakes?" "Oh yeah, you are new. It's the first earthquake in Hawaii we have had ever since Earth was transferred here. The plates had stopped being so active there." HM. "Seems to be quite minor though." Chapter 107 State of the World. 1029 June 14, 2020 CE Riverside National Cemetery, California. This is one of the single most devastating events that our country has faced since coming to this new world. We are here to honor the 93 brave sailors of the USS Cheyenne who have died in service of this great nation. We shall, after a few more minutes to finish this speech, Ronell was escorted to the side. Rifles were fired in 3 volleys as a lone trumpet played. Families of the sailors stood crying before their loved ones' graves. 5 miles from Los Angeles, a Marine Protector-class patrol boat, the USCGC Pike, tried to keep up with the speeding yacht. By order of the President of the United States, no boats are allowed into the Pacific Ocean. Please remain within 5 miles of land. You are currently going beyond 5 miles. Turn back. I repeat, turn back. Failure to comply will result in your vessel being boarded and those aboard arrested. The yacht completely ignored the commands of the Coast Guard ship and continued sailing. The .50 caliber machine gun on the Coast Guard ship opened up in a small burst. There were multiple splashes of water in front of the yacht. The yacht veered to the right and quickly came to a stop. Shouts came from the yacht. Don't shoot. What the fuck are you doing? Go. You are not getting paid if you don't. I don't want to fucking die. This isn't worth it anymore. 8 Coast Guardsmen with rifles boarded the ship. Down on the ground. Hands up. The small group of people on board quickly raised their hands. The Coast Guardsmen handcuffed the crew and a middle-aged couple on the yacht. The husband, who seemed to be the owner of the yacht, was visibly upset. What is this? Nazi Germany? You have no right to stop me from traveling where I want. The sailors started leading the arrested towards the USCGC Pike. Sir, there has been a restriction ordered by the President that does not allow ships on the Pacific Ocean beyond 5 miles of shore. If you wanted to go out to sea, you could have followed the shoreline until you got to the Southern Ocean where there is no restriction. Do you know who I am? You can't do this to me. If you aren't the President of the United States, I don't care who you are. No one is allowed to sail into the Pacific Ocean unless with prior approval. You and the others on this ship will be detained and the ship will be seized. Well, you can go fuck yourself, and you have the right to stay silent. 1745 June 14, 2020 CE Washington, D.C. The FBI director sat down across from the president. The court date for Quincy has been set. Oh. It's about this matter. I nearly forgot about Quincy. As long as he is charged within the bounds of the law, I don't give a damn anymore. What if he breaks the agreement, as I ordered before? I want people to keep an eye on him and make sure that he doesn't talk, and that if he does talk, make sure that it doesn't spread. What do you want me to do to him if he does talk? Ronell became quiet. After a few seconds, he sighed. Just make it look like an accident, alright? Have no records of it, of course, Mr. President. We have done this before. I'm trusting you on this. Magi Research and Development Center, Magus Imperium. Multiple elves in green cloaks looked over the engine of a night magic panzer. The elves seemed to have decided on using a hybrid approach, combining both mechanical and magical. Isn't it similar to our hybrid engines? Yes, but they have applied magic to all of their technology. Even their ammunition is special. Well, in our view the elves' technological aim is still hybrid like ours. Ours is pure and true magic. I'm concerned about the American mechanical technology. The Emperor seems to be really fond of those toys that they gave him. One of the researchers who had a white beard shook his head. He has been invested in magical research since the moment he became Emperor. He won't let all that investment go to waste, not including the superiority of the American mechanical technology. Won't these elven technologies that we know have encouraged him to still use a hybrid approach? He is very interested in these magic batteries that the elves have. We just need to present something even better. Our research should be coming into fruition soon. Although I cannot guarantee it to be better than what the American mechanical technology has to offer, I can say it will be better or comparable to elven technology. 0222 June 15, 2020 CE 0411 Sun 45th. 196 AE Primopolis, Magus Imperium. Emperor Arstant looked up at the sky. Soldiers in uniform were marching down the street in the view of his palace. Civilians lined the sidewalks cheering and waving. Wyverns flew overhead at the military parade. A squadron of P-51 Mustangs flew in V formation. While they now had the capability to build P-51s, their air force was mainly still reliant on Wyverns. The Magi researchers were studying the idea of enhancement magic in order to improve the Wyverns and hopefully make them comparable to these P-51s. On the ground, a platoon of 4 M4 Shermans drove down the road side by side, followed by columns of A-1s. The difference was stunning. The A-1 was just a long rectangular box with a 75mm gun in front. It had riveted armor and looked unwieldy. Artillery and anti-aircraft pieces pulled by trucks followed the tanks. More soldiers followed. Emperor Arstant smiled as he watched them go by. 0430 June 15, 2020 CE 0515 Sun 45th, 196 AE Asta Air Base, Magus Imperium. Welcome, Emperor Arstant. We are happy to let you view the first shipments of food aid that are being given to your country. An American colonel guided Arstant through the airbase. A gigantic gray aircraft sat on the field next to the paved runway. Arstant looked at it in wonder. The size of it was unlike anything he has ever seen. And, that's an aircraft? Yes, a C-5M Super Galaxy. It is a transport aircraft capable of carrying vehicles, men and equipment. We are sending food aid to your country using aircraft such as this. It's currently carrying about 100 tons of food. Arstant got himself out of staring at it. That doesn't sound like the agreed amount. More shipments will come soon. Mostly via ship, but the first few will be by aircraft such as these to provide faster aid. A random airfield, Magus Imperium. Simon waited at an airfield where he was scheduled to be transported back home. At least 40 other elves were besides him. American soldiers stood nearby keeping a watch on them. They were very laid back. Somewhere in the elven nation, groups of Chinooks carrying soldiers departed from an airfield. An infantryman looked out from the window beside his seat in the Chinook. This is much faster than expected, isn't it? We are already going home. There are still some poor sods that still need to keep stuff under control. We were just fighting the remnants of a defeated army. They will do fine without the rest of us there. The prophecy shall be fulfilled. It will be to the will of the Great One. The gate will be open soon. Our darkness will spread to the other worlds. Guttural noises could be heard among what seemed like a crowd of jet black flesh. Some of them had sticks with skulls on them. Chapter 108. Welcome to California. 0655 June 15, 2020 CE 0627 Sun 45th, 196 AE Elven Nation MR. President, the Americans have begun their general withdrawal. There are still contingents of American soldiers present for security reasons. Fallon smiled a bit. What is the current state of our military? About 10,000 strong, sir. Armed mostly with small arms. We have a few magic panzers. Barely a company. We have no air force or navy to speak of. I think that's good enough. I'm shrinking the military budget and redirecting the funds to rebuilding efforts. Give me the agriculture minister's update on the food situation. We just need half of the amount of pre-war farmland to feed our population, so we should have more than enough. Good. I'm glad they started running again. What's next on my agenda for today, sir? You still have a meeting in the afternoon with the American diplomat to discuss how the Americans wish for how the Elven government should be restructured. Duly noted. After, Fallon started looking through a bunch of reports and briefs. Fallon didn't know how long it was, but a knock soon came on the door, which he answered. Seelan popped her head in. Fallon, lunch is about ready. After, join us too. We are having petron fish cooked with saltnut sauce. Walking the hallways of his office home, Fallon looked at Seelan and sighed. We have a long road ahead of us, don't we? Seelan, yes, we do. Fallon, yes we do. Washington, D.C. It is highly likely that he will serve life in prison. Ronell turned off the TV and drank a sip of water. This has got to be the strangest thing a president has ever experienced. Fucking elves, Magus Imperium, this is not true pure magic. On his throne, Arstant looked upset at his magi researchers. Then what is true pure magic? Their ammunition doesn't even consist of metal, but it requires a vehicle to fire from. Arstant shook his head. He looked up at the ceiling of his castle while thinking about what kind of crazy idiots he had hired. We don't even use magic as ammunition. We use metal for ammunition. I don't understand what you are trying to do. We are aiming to not even need the vehicle to fire from. Pure and true magic. Have we not told your majesty? This is the true pursuit of our institution. To do away with using anything mechanical and to embrace magic as human's true future. Our empire accepts both magic and the mechanical and has accepted them both since our founding. I see no reason to embrace only magic, of course. Of course. We will not persecute those who embrace machines, but this will be a magic revolution. Your Majesty, do you have anything to show for it then? Of course. A few hours later, a testing ground somewhere in the Magus Imperium, the Emperor, multiple magi researchers, and members of the military crowded together on a field and looked towards the sky. A single wyvern flew about. The wyvern suddenly sped up to incredible speeds. The Emperor widened his eyes in amazement. Then the wyvern then suddenly slowed down to regular speed. One of the magi researchers nodded. And that is an example of enhancement magic we are developing. How fast was that? That should have been about 650 miles per hour. Much faster than an elven jet aircraft. Why did it slow down so fast? Well, this is why we haven't shown it to you yet. It's not perfect. We will still need to find a way to extend it beyond a few mere seconds. We are making progress, Arston frowned. But aren't the Americans much faster and their high speeds can be maintained? Your Majesty, I understand that they have amazing mechanical technology, but our empire has had its roots in magic. Our empire was founded on the basis of protecting users of magic. To switch focus onto just mechanical technology in pursuit of the Americans would be a mistake, because we will never see or find out the potential of magical technology. 0720 June 15, 2020 CE Fremont, California. Luke Fuller, his mom bellowed from the floor below. Wake up or you are going to be late for school. Luke jolted awake and sat in his bed blinking. He looked at his clock. 8:05. I'm coming. GM is sec. Rushing downstairs after brushing his teeth and slinging his backpack on his back, his mom greeted him. His golden hair was still wet from the water he splashed on his face. Your dad is already off to work. It's 7:25. You are going to miss the bus. He slid into his seat at the table after setting his backpack down. He choked down a scrambled egg. Not if I eat fast enough. Luke got onto his bus right on time. Hayden, how you doing? Hayden just nodded in response and looked out the window. Luke rolled his eyes and sat right next to Hayden. He put in his earbuds and started to doze off. A sea of people was in front of him as Luke walked in through the doors that lined the front entrance. Sundale High School. He was going to finally graduate in 9 days and get out of this place. He was supposed to graduate earlier, but due to the chaos following the transferal, the start of the school year was pushed back by 2 weeks, which in turn pushed the end date back by the same amount. As Luke looked through his locker, a voice caught his attention. Luke greeted the tall figure approaching him. Jackson. What's up? Jackson fist bumped Luke. Doing good. You ready for the party 2 weeks from now? Of course. You ain't chickening out like last party, right? Luke snorted. Of course not. It's the graduation party. Who do you think I am? Jackson laughed. The guy who ditched me last party. Look. I wasn't feeling that comfortable. Jackson placed an arm around Luke's shoulder. Jackson's brown hair went down to Luke's shoulder. You have to get out of your shell, you know. You are some weird mystery in between an extrovert and introvert. I will show you the way of the extrovert. Trust me, I'm an expert. You may even find a girl or something. Luke laughed nervously at that. Luke stared at Mr. Johnson's mouth as Mr. Johnson talked about whatever subject he was currently in. He couldn't quite remember. He really didn't see the point of class anymore since he already got accepted into Santa Clara University. Then his whole body started shaking. He got out of his stupor just as the teacher shouted. Get your head down below the desk. Stay under your desk until the shaking stops. Keep a hold of one of the legs of your table. Luke dove under his desk and got his hands on one of the legs. As the shaking turned even more violent, he closed his eyes as loud crashes indicated objects falling onto the ground. His hand wrapped around his desk's leg even firmer. The crashing noise stopped, but the shaking wasn't done. A couple minutes passed by until the shaking stopped. The room became eerily quiet. Everyone, stay under your desks. Luke opened his eyes. The floor was a complete mess. He could see the rest of his classmates under their desks. All seemed to be okay. A few minutes later, his teacher spoke again. It seems safe enough. You can come out, but don't touch anything that fell, especially the lights. Mr. Johnson was still looking around at the damage while Luke and his classmates got a hold of themselves. Earthquakes weren't uncommon in California, but it had been a long time since one occurred. One of his classmates raised their hands. When can we leave? We are going to wait until directions come from the speaker. Feet could be heard out in the hallway. One of his classmates looked back at Mr. Johnson from the door. Hey, the other classes are leaving. It's been a few minutes. The speaker is probably broken. Mr. Johnson looked out of the door. All right, we are evacuating to the assembly area outside. Everyone, stay together. Luke got into his mom's car. After everyone assembled in a field and the teachers made sure that everyone was accounted for, school was dismissed for the rest of the day. Hey Mom, is the house fine? Only some things that fell off. Your father is coming back from work. Sweet, I also have no school for the rest of the day. Fort Irwin, California. Two soldiers looked around as the shaking subsided. Huh? That lasted a couple minutes. I think it's a high-magnitude earthquake. That didn't do much damage though. Man, is it just me or are these earthquakes getting more and more frequent? California probably had all of that pent up and is releasing it right now. Like how someone holds in their farts and then lets them all out later. Ew. You really have to be that disgusting? What? It's an accurate description. You could have settled for anything else, but you just had to settle with a fart analogy. If I don't make you queasy every day, then I haven't done my duty. God damn it. Man, a knock came on the door. Tate, Bishop, you two alright? Bishop answered. Yes, Staff Sergeant. We are fine. Well, if not for Tate's analogies. 0759 June 18, 2020 CE San Francisco, California. Officer Andrew Milan arrested in his police vehicle. He was still exhausted from helping during the cleanup efforts after the earthquake. It has now been 3 days since the earthquake and the streets looked quite normal. Somewhat scrambled noises start coming out of his radio. Andrew put the radio to his mouth. Possible 10-91V. Advised 10-0, 10-4, will investigate. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelis. There you'll find the original version of this story, and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 109 Battle of San Francisco Part 1, Blood on the Sands. 0814 June 18, 2020 CE. Time at San Francisco, San Francisco. Andrew put his police car, a Ford Taurus, at the parking lot of the beach. It was a familiar place since he had been to this beach many times with his kids. The view of the Golden Gate Bridge just to the right was impressive as always. Being a Monday morning, the parking lot only had a few cars and the beach was mostly deserted. A man with white hair came running up to him. Officer, were you the one who reported the sightings of strange animals? Yes. It wasn't like anything I have ever seen. About the size of an elephant. And where is it right now? It went back into the ocean just a few minutes after it came out. The man pointed over to a direction towards the left. Andrew got out his notepad and a pen. All right. Can I get your name and what you were doing here? Tony Corrals. My wife and I were just walking along the beach. I recently retired and it's not crowded at this time, so I decided we could use a nice walk. Andrew nodded while scribbling on his notepad. Thank you, Mr. Corrals. I'm Officer Andrew Molinas with the San Francisco Police Department. Do you have any photos or videos of the animal? Any other witnesses? No. I didn't bring anything that could have recorded it. Other than my wife and I don't think anybody else saw it. I might be able to get it on one of the cameras in the area, but can you describe what it looked like? It was jet black, had a long sharp nose like a swordfish, stumpy forelegs. Thank you. I would also like to see the exact location of where the animal came ashore. Thank you for the information, Mr. Corrals. I recommend you stay clear of the beach for the time being. Andrew walked back to his patrol vehicle and sat down in the driver's seat. The sand where Mr. Corrals led him was imprinted with countless large round holes. If it was an animal, it would have been about the size of an elephant. He picked up his car radio. This is Officer Molinas. Go ahead, just questioned the person who made the report. The animal seems to have returned to the ocean. I'm suspecting it's an unknown elephant-sized New World animal. I would suggest that people stay clear of any nearby beach. Screaming cut him off. He looked outside of the window. Shit, he rushed out of his car and drew his pistol. Mr. Corrals was hanging in the jaws of an elephant-sized, jet black, four-legged creature that had a long, pointed nose similar to a jousting lance and a long tail. The monstrosity's front legs were bent in a fashion so that its mouth could get to Mr. Corrals without having its nose jutting into the ground. The creature crunched Mr. Corrals's torso. A few people ran past Andrew. He shouted to the horrified viewers. Get off the beach. Andrew emptied the magazine of his Sig Sauer P226 at the creature. The .40 S&W bullets bounced off the scales of the creature. Andrew's eyes grew wide as numerous similar creatures of varying size started coming ashore. Even more jet black backs of the creatures started emerging from the waters and swimming towards the beach. The creature he just shot at looked up from its meal at him. Blood covered its mouth and dripped onto the sand, coloring it red. Shit, the creature started lumbering towards him. Running into the parking lot, he found it empty. He got back into his car, slammed the door shut, put the car in drive and slammed on the gas. The tire screeched on the gravel. I repeat 11-99. This is Officer Molinas. Multiple large and dangerous creatures have come ashore at Baker's Beach. One of the creatures has eaten a man and is currently pursuing me. My pistol had no effect on it. I need help immediately, understood. More units are on their way. I'm notifying SWAT. He got onto the main road. A few cars drove by and there were people walking on the streets. He switched on the lights of his sirens and the loudspeakers. I repeat, evacuate immediately. Stay away from the beach. Down the road to the left, trees fell as one of the creatures emerged next to the road. A car swerved to the left to avoid it. Traffic needs to be cleared from the surrounding area. The creature is on the road. The blaring sirens indicated that other units were nearby and closing in. 1134 June 18, 2020 CE. Time at Washington, D.C. Washington, D.C. In the hallways of the White House, an aide ran up to Ronell. Mr. President. Urgent report. San Francisco is under attack. What? By whom? Unknown jet black creatures came ashore at Baker's Beach. Local law enforcement are currently responding. Ronell stood there, rubbed his face and grimaced. Fucking hell. Fremont, California. Luke played with his pencil as Mr. Johnson droned on about history. The PA system came on. We have received information that a dangerous situation is occurring nearby. All teachers are advised not to let students out of the classrooms. Please be prepared to evacuate at a moment's notice. The class went quiet at that. Mr. Johnson frowned. All right. Seeing that this isn't occurring in the school, we are going to continue with the lesson. Mr. Johnson went and locked the door before returning to the front of the room. 0905 June 18, 2020 CE. Fort Irwin, California. Tate went up to the staff sergeant. Staff sergeant, why are we being deployed? Some strange monsters are attacking San Francisco. Now, you two, get to your Humvee. We will get more information on the trip there. We have no time to waste. A few Humvees, M1A2 Abrams, and M2A3 Bradleys were already gathering on the concrete field. 1022 June 18, 2020 CE. San Francisco. Andrew had retreated further inland with other police units. They had evacuated most of the civilians behind them. The creatures weren't that fast, but it took time to evacuate civilians and form a line of defense to hold the creatures back. Along the way, he got handed a police AR-15. He stopped his patrol vehicle in front of a SWAT van and got out. The intersection of Kirkham Street and 19th Avenue in front of him was full of patrol vehicles. A line of patrol vehicles blocked the intersection. Dozens of police officers and SWAT officers were present. A SWAT officer approached him. Andrew greeted him. Officer Molinas. I was told to report here. We just arrived here too. Seems like we are gonna try to stop them here. Stop them here. We killed a few of them while helping with the evacuation. I'm sure your AR-15 will do fine. Pump a bunch of 5.56 in them and they will die. Their head is the best place to shoot. Avoid the nose though, bullets literally ping off of that. Andrew frowned. San Francisco isn't that good of a place to defend. I heard they were coming ashore from the ocean all around the city. We are forming a line of defense along State Route 1 up to the Golden Gate Park for the west side. A line on Page Street for the north side. And starting from Page Street going down, a line near US 101 for the east side. There are still units outside of this defensive perimeter trying to evacuate civilians though. Behind the SWAT officer, a police sergeant shouted at two other police officers. You two, check those houses for civilians. If there are, tell them to leave immediately. We got incoming. A single creature came barreling down the street. Andrew opened up with his AR-15. SWAT officers flanking him also opened fire. The creature took multiple hits to the head before going down. Cheers erupted but soon died down as screeches were heard. We got more. Washington, D.C. The multiple screens in the Situation Room showed muted news channels. The channels were showing footage from news helicopters in San Francisco. Groups of the jet black creatures were shown coming ashore in the San Francisco Bay Area. Mr. President, they are coming ashore everywhere along the San Francisco Bay. We have reports of them on the airstrips at the Oakland International Airport. We aren't sure of the numbers but it seems to be in the hundreds. Local law enforcement is being overwhelmed. Ronell furrowed his eyebrows. Stephen, what military units are responding? The chairman of the Joint Chief of Staff responded. The California National Guard has been alerted and their quick response forces should be responding within hours from now. The Air Force should also arrive close to that time. The 1 Marine Expeditionary Force at Camp Pendleton should arrive within 5 hours. The 11th Armored Cavalry Regiment is currently preparing to travel to San Francisco. They will need more than 10 hours to mobilize and reach San Francisco. We are limited in our response capabilities since a majority of our forces are in transition to return after the Elven War. Ronell sat back on his chair. Now, do we have any idea what these are? I guess you are here for a reason. Dr. Munoz nodded as Ronell looked at him. Mr. President. I am certain that this is the lancetfish I was talking about. The nose definitely fits the bill. Of course, I guess the fish part of the name is not true now, and it's most likely to be a reptile. Lance a reptile, doesn't have that nice of a ring to it. Lancetfish is better, Stephen interrupted Dr. Munoz's mumbling about the creature's name. From the reports from local law enforcement, it seems to take multiple bullets from a 5.56mm rifle to kill it. A .50 sniper round kills them quite easily though. A few minutes later an aide entered the room. Mr. President. We have various sightings of ships approaching San Francisco. Ships? Civilian or military? We aren't sure if we can even call them ships. Chapter 110 Battle of San Francisco Part 2, The Initial Wave. 1036 June 18, 2020 CE San Francisco gunfire opened up from the police line on another creature that lumbered towards them. Andrew felt his AR-15 jerk back onto his shoulder every time he pulled the trigger. The creature quickly went down. There were corpses of these creatures spread across the street in front of them. Some were huge while others were much smaller. The rotor blades of a helicopter could be heard above him. Andrew looked up as a police helicopter positioned itself with its side facing down the street. A single shot came from the open side door of the helicopter and streaked down the street towards an unseen target. The police sniper on the helicopter stayed silent for a few minutes before they opened fire again. A shout near him caught his attention. Andrew, it was a co-worker he was close to at his station. Oh, Terry. You are here too, Terry nodded. Just got here. Where you get that AR? I don't remember you being issued one. Terry was carrying an AR-15 that was issued to him. Someone had a spare and gave it to me while I was evacuating people. That's good. I don't think we have to do much now though. They got a .50 caliber sniper on that helicopter. It definitely put a stop to those monsters. The shots from the .50 calibers started becoming constant and faster. Every few seconds, the sniper opened fire. They seemingly only stopped at intervals to reload. Somebody further behind him shouted, "We have a wave of them. Brace yourselves." A few minutes later, holy shit. Open fire. A massive black was just lumbering towards. There were so many creatures that they seemingly blended in together. Andrew put his empty magazine down on the ground and reached for another one of the magazines that he kept on his waist, only to grasp at nothing. Anybody got a spare mag? Terry tossed him two and continued shooting. Andrew slammed the magazine in and gave Terry a quick thanks. The massive creatures slowly but surely inched towards the police line. A SWAT officer beside him shouted, "I don't think we can hold this." Andrew didn't know who, but somebody responded. "Keep shooting. Don't let them through. Fucking hell. Start backing up." Washington, D.C. One of the TVs in the Situation Room was set to a local news station in San Francisco. San Francisco County, Marin County, San Mateo County, Contra Costa County, and Alameda County are under evacuation orders. All civilians are required to evacuate from these counties. Sonoma County, Napa County, Solano County, and Santa Clara County are under evacuation warning. Although not required, all civilians are suggested to evacuate further inland from these counties. If you live in a county under evacuation orders and are unable to evacuate by your own means, it is recommended that you travel to one of these locations for evacuations. The screen switched from a new anchor to a list of locations. Please locate the one closest to you on this list. Stephen had a concerned look on his face. Mr. President, that's nearly 5 million people under evacuation orders. Are there any reports of lancetfish sightings in Hawaii or Guam? Carlson shook his head. None whatsoever. So, people there are being restricted from accessing the beaches. The Hawaii National Guard and the military units on Guam are on high alert. Ronell sighed. We can only hope for the best at this point. When will the Air Force arrive in San Francisco? Within minutes, sir. Have we found out what those mysterious ships were? Any more information on that? We have sent a drone to investigate. It will take some time to arrive. Well, do we have any information we can gather now? They are described to be the same jet black as the creatures ashore but closely resembles a ship. That's mostly what we know from witnesses far away. An aide walked into the room. Mr. President, the governor of California is on the phone. Give me that. 1055 June 18, 2020 CE Fremont, California. Even though class was supposed to end 20 minutes ago, Mr. Johnson continued with his lesson. The PA system went on again. Please remain with your teachers and class as you exit towards the front of the school. Your parents have already been informed of the evacuation location. You will be able to meet your parents there. Please refrain from asking your parents to come pick you up at the school, as we want to avoid traffic jams. Please remain calm and follow all instructions from your teachers. Luke looked around. There was a moment of silence before voices arose. What's happening? Oh my God, some people got out their smartphones. Mr. Johnson had a surprised look on his face, but it quickly wore off. Okay everyone, the students' voices drowned out Mr. Johnson. Holy cow. We're under attack by strange monsters. Look at this. A few of the students crowded around the smartphone of the students who said that. Mr. Johnson bellowed, everyone. A silence fell on the students as they looked at Mr. Johnson. I don't know what is happening, but we will be following these instructions. We will be leaving the classroom in an orderly fashion. Please stay together and do not stray from your classmates. Luke exited the school building following his classmates. He just had to keep an eye on Mr. Johnson's bald head. A line of yellow school buses lined the school driveway. There were also 3 police cars. 2 near the exit of the driveway and 1 behind the line of school buses. His class came to a stop at the pavement near the buses. One of the front office ladies was talking with Mr. Johnson. Shouting caught Luke's attention. On the grass a few yards away, a police officer and a school faculty member were arguing with a woman. Why can't I just grab my child and go? The school faculty member shook his head. Sorry, ma'am, we aren't giving anybody preferential treatment. You can follow the buses to their location, but it's my child. Mabel Darrison. Can't you just go find her really quickly? The policeman took over the conversation. It will take time to do so and we don't have time. We aren't sure how long we can hold them off. That is why we aren't letting parents pick up their kids. We can't have traffic snarling up the evacuation. Those things will get here before even half the students would be able to get picked up. There will also be people trapped in a traffic jam. It will be a massacre. Please return to your vehicle. You may follow the buses towards the evacuation site. All students will be returned to their parents there. The argument continued, but Luke couldn't listen for much longer. Mr. Johnson turned to the class. Quickly. Onto the bus everybody. Luke sat down by himself. He didn't really talk much to the classmates he had in Mr. Johnson's class. Another class started boarding the bus. A person sat down to Luke and he brightened up as he saw who it was. Hayden. Your class is on this bus too. Hayden nodded. Luke did a small laugh. Huh? What are the chances? A third class started filing in. Luke looked around. Isn't this bus getting a bit crowded? Mr. Johnson shouted. Everyone, please sit close together. We need at least 3 people per seat. 1113 June 18, 2020 CE California State Route 58, 70 miles from Los Angeles. Bishop was at the wheel staring at the back of a Bradley as they traveled at 35 miles per hour. Tate looked out from the window of the Humvee at the vast expanse of nothingness. A long convoy of Bradleys, Abrams, and Humvees were on the highway. Tate sighed. How long till we get there? Should be 8 more hours. Chapter 111 Battle of San Francisco Part 3, Airspace Denied. 1122 June 18, 2020 CE San Francisco. 2 of the patrol vehicles that had made up the blockade were pushed aside. The third one was overturned. The monsters had pushed back the firing line, but the withering fire that the officers put up kept them at bay. While Andrew loaded another magazine into his AR, the radio on his shoulder crackled. How is the overall evacuation going? The monsters are swarming the park. There are about 20% complete. How much longer is it going to take? A string of curses from a third person interrupted the radio conversation. Hold for a moment, Lieutenant Breckinridge. Who is this? Please keep this frequency reserved for important information. You can curse in your assigned frequency. This is fucking important information. This is Sergeant Adam Zhang. The damn things have broken through at the intersection between Page Street and Divisadero Street. We are retreating. Fuck, gunshots could be heard over the radio. Sergeant? Where are the units they're retreating to? There was a moment of silence. Sergeant? Are you there? Sergeant? There was another moment of silence as Sergeant Zhang didn't respond. Lieutenant Breckinridge? Yes, sir. To everyone on this frequency, we are planning a fallback line. We will inform you of the location soon. Pass the word. He had forgotten to switch the frequency to the one that he had been told when he arrived at this intersection. He was glad he forgot though. Shit, Terry didn't hear Andrew's cursing, but he did notice that Andrew had stopped shooting. Terry stopped firing and raised his voice over the sound of the gunfire around them. What's the matter? Need more ammo? No. Terry shook his head. What? Speak louder. No. Someone reported over the command frequency that the monsters broke through at a point on Page Street. My children go to school near there. Jesse told me that schools have been ordered to be evacuated to the evacuation points. I'm sure they are alright. Andrew patted on his phone in his pocket. I'm gonna go make a call. Jessie is on her way to pick up our children at the evacuation point. She can also pick up yours if you want her to. Will she be staying there or evacuating? Most of Richmond District is overrun now, so I don't think going back home is a good idea anymore. Most likely staying and waiting for us. If the situation gets worse, she will evacuate with the kids. I will call my kids and tell them that Jessie is picking them up at the evacuation point then. I think you should do it later when we don't have fucking monsters a couple yards away from us. Andrew shook his head. Family comes first. I gotta make sure my kiddos are fine. I think you guys can handle it if one guy leaves for a bit, then call Jessie for me and tell her about your kids. Also tell her I'm doing fine. Alright, got it. Thanks, Terry. With that, Terry continued shooting. As Andrew began walking away from the firing line, he looked up as he heard and then saw jets fly over them. Soon after, multiple explosions were heard. The package has been dropped. We are Winchester and will RTB. RTB is authorized. Have a safe trip back. The two F-15Es banked to their sides so they could circle back. Multiple objects on radar coming towards us from behind at high speeds. Break formation. Break formation. Deploy encounter measures. Flares and chaff popped out of the F-15s as they climbed upwards. Multiple projectiles sped past them straight into the sky. I have been hit. Copy. How bad is the damage? Are you able to return to base? It hit my left wing. I'm unsure of the damage, but the aircraft still seems capable of flying. I will try to make it back to base. This is Eagle 2. I have a visual on the damage. Half of Eagle 1's left wing is gone. Less than an hour later, Nellis Air Force Base, Nevada. The F-15 that was missing half its left wing started its descent onto the runway. Eagle 2 stayed in the air above, making loops. The pilot sweated as she focused on keeping the aircraft in control. The landing gear came out and the F-15 started touching the ground. The pilot and her weapons systems officer clambered out of the aircraft and took a look at it as the ground crew started running up to her. Half of the F-15's left wing was sheared clean off. Washington, D.C. Mr. President. One of our F-15s that was conducting an airstrike over San Francisco was nearly shot down from an unidentified source. It has landed safely at its airbase. However, it brings up the fact that what we are facing could possibly have surface-to-air missiles. Ronell frowned. Surface-to-air missiles? Are we facing a technologically comparable enemy? We aren't certain. From current information, a high-speed projectile collided with an F-15 when it began its return trip from bombing the Lancefish, tore off its wing but did not explode. Do we have a visual of their ships yet? We have an RQ-4 Global Hawk from Beale's Air Base approaching the area soon, sir. Fremont, California. Chattering filled the bus as Luke classmates looked through videos of the monsters invading the Bay Area. A few others around him were making phone calls like him. Luke felt relieved as his mom's voice came on through the other side. Have you heard what's happening? Her mom's voice, tinged with worry, replied. Are you alright? Where are you right now? I'm fine, Mom. I'm on a school bus. We have police escorts. The school told me that they are taking us to Levi's Stadium and that our parents can pick us up there. I know, the school informed me. I'm on my way. I'm glad you are okay. Your dad got off work and is also on his way. Stay there until we arrive, alright, Oka. Luke couldn't finish as he felt as if he was flying. In a snap, pain pierced through him. Luke, are you there? Hearing his mom's voice, Luke opened his eyes and blinked. A group of blurry colors filled his vision. He heard gunshots and shouting as he got out of his pain-filled gaze. Realizing that he was lying on his side with something cold touching his face, he sat up to look around. The bus was flipped on its side. He was sitting on the windows, which were thankfully laminated glass, so it didn't shatter into glass shards. He could hear groans from a few others on the bus. Looking around, a few were sitting up like him, but some were still lying down. Hayden was lying beside him with his eyes closed. Luke started shaking Hayden. Hayden. "You alright?" Hayden responded with coughing. Luke looked around for where the voice came from and found his phone. His smartphone survived thanks to the heavy-duty case and screen protector he had put on it. The screen was cracked and his mom was getting hysterical though. Luke picked up his phone. "What hit your bus? Do you need me to pick you up? Are you hurt?" Whoa. Slow down there, Mom. I'm alright. I don't know. Just give me a few minutes. I need to get out of the bus." Luke looked towards Hayden, who had opened his eyes but was staring off into space. "Hayden. You good? We need to get off the bus." 1234 June 18, 2020 CE Washington, D.C. We have just gotten a visual of the ships that were approaching San Francisco. They seem to have landed and are concentrated on Ocean Beach. It will be on screen momentarily. The large screen that covered a side of the Situation Room soon displayed a beach with rolling waves. On the beach were multiple figures that all those in the room were staring at. Ronell's frown deepened. "What the hell are those?" Chapter 112 Battle of San Francisco Part 4, Reinforcements. 1235 June 18, 2020 CE Washington Boulevard, Irvington, California. The emergency exit door at the back of the bus was opened. A policewoman peeked in. "Everybody, get off the bus. The monsters are attacking." Without thinking, Luke grabbed Hayden and slung Hayden's arm over his shoulder. Luke's mind was still taking in what had happened. Around him, people stood up to get off the bus and some, like him, carried and helped others. Since the door was sideways, everyone had to climb to get out. Luke gave Hayden to a person outside and Hayden was pulled out of the bus. When Luke himself got out, he was met with utter carnage. Police officers were trying to get the rest of the students off the bus, whilst another waved and shouted at them to go somewhere. Go. Come on. Off the street and into that building." A couple people pushed past him to get to wherever the officer was telling them to go to. The background noises were deafening. Around the street, multiple police officers had assault rifles in their hands firing towards something. There was a metallic smell in the air that Luke had never smelled before. None of the other buses that their bus was following were there, most likely having already fled. A person patted him on the back. Luke turned to see Mr. Johnson looking at him with concern. Luke barely made out what he said. "Luke, we have to go. Come on." Mr. Johnson had rarely addressed him before, so it came as a shock that he remembered his name. Luke replied with only a nod and started walking towards where everybody else was going. Behind him, Mr. Johnson's voice vibrated in the air amidst the gunshots. "Stay together." A blast of cool air hid him as Luke entered the Wells Fargo Bank. Students crowded the place. The amount wasn't surprising as 3 classes had been jammed onto that one bus. 2 police officers and the teachers of the 2 other classes were also there. They had their attention on the students lying on the ground. Close by, a police officer was shouting into their radio. "We have people bleeding here. I need medical here." Luke quickly looked away when he saw that the girl that the policeman was tending to had an arm covered in blood. A shout came from the door behind him. "Is everybody here all right? This position is collapsing. We have to move." The police officer tending to the wounded girl shouted back. "We have people who are injured. They need medical assistance." Luke looked at the door that he had entered from. The voice that had told them that they had to move came from another policeman. "No time. Just carry them. I'm not sure how much longer we can stay here. We are going on foot." Mr. Johnson, who Luke had not noticed coming into the bank, walked up to the officer shouting from the door. Luke heard Mr. Johnson raise voice but he didn't make out what he said. Luke noticed that Mr. Johnson looked unhappily at the police officer. Luke could hear the policeman's reply. "Sorry, I can't do that. I promise you that we are gonna find some way to transport you guys there. But we have to get away from this area first, and the best way is by foot," one of the teachers shouted. "We need some people to help carry the injured." Amidst the commotion of people carrying the wounded, Luke soon found Hayden sitting down, leaned against the wall. "Hey, Hayden." Hayden had his eyes open and seemed to be less dazed. "Hey, Luke, you alright? Thanks for saving me." Luke nodded. "Come on, let's go. We have to leave." Hayden nodded. Washington, D.C. On the screen, the beach was populated by large humanoid creatures with leathery jet black skin. Some of them had horns on them while others did not. They were all holding chunks of rock that somewhat resembled a spear. A few were grabbing crates and moving them onto the beach from their ships. Their ships looked very unnerving. It resembled a cargo ship without a bridge. It was the same skin texture as the humanoids, and multiple eyes dotted the ship at random locations. While most of their ships had eyes moving around and looking in all directions, the eyes of one of the ships seemed to be focused on the drone. A giant red toad with a giant box-shaped growth on its back jumped into the camera view of the beach. It turned towards the drone. In the situation room, a voice pierced the quietness in shock. "I think they noticed the drone." A blast of objects came out of the box on the back of the toad. The screen suddenly became black. Ronell immediately spoke up. "What happened? What was that?" "It seems that the drone was shot down by that giant toad thing," Steven spoke up. "Their munitions are not guided at all. It's more akin to a canister shot." Ronell turned his attention to him. "Canister shot? When you fire a canister shot out of a cannon, the shell turns into multiple pieces in order to damage a large group of something. That's what's happening here. They don't have the accuracy, so they just blanket the sky with shrapnel or objects." Ronell shook his head. "What are we even facing, and where did these things come from? I have to say they look like things from the depth of damned hell. Those anti-air weapons do seem alive. Maybe we can get that scientist back in here to give us an explanation." Dr. Munoz tapped his chin. "This could possibly be an artificial modification of the creature. On the other hand, it could be naturally occurring. If the species ate flying animals and those animals flew at heights similar to fighter jets, it is possible, albeit you would only expect something like this from a fantasy world created by an insane maniac. But I can't tell you where it came from. This new world has quite a different biological makeup than our world, and we haven't catalogued all of it." Carlson interrupted Dr. Munoz's musings. "Mr. President, we are setting up a task team to scour through satellite images in order to locate their origins. We are hoping for results soon." San Francisco. Andrew walked back towards the firing line, having just finished his phone calls. A shout caught his attention. "One of our jets are going down." He looked to the sky. A fighter jet was spinning out of control in the sky. Both of its wings were missing. 20 minutes later they are breaking through. Andrew kept firing his AR, but it seemed as if every monster he downed, another came to replace it. The entire firing line had started backing up once again. A voice came through his radio. "We have set up another perimeter, 7th Avenue for the west, Frederick Street and Dubose Avenue for the north, Folsom Street for the east. The National Guard will be arriving soon. Retreat." Andrew turned his patrol vehicle around and followed the other police vehicles. After driving down the road for a few minutes, they saw two Humvees rushing towards them from the opposite direction. The .50 calibers from an California National Guard Humvees started laying down lead on the monsters behind the fleeing police vehicles. A few minutes later, Andrew and the others had gotten to 7th Avenue safely thanks to their retreat being covered by the two Humvees. A couple soldiers rushed around setting up sandbags at the intersection. Andrew noticed a police lieutenant was talking with a soldier. "We are with the California National Guard and will be providing assistance to these creatures known as lancefishes." "That's the dumbest name I have ever heard." "Not my choice. A couple scientists have decided to name them that and the government ran with it. There are only 10 of us here, but these monsters seem to be slow, mindless meatbags, so it shouldn't be that hard to deal with. Our mission is to help you hold this perimeter until the Marines, Army, and additional National Guard units get here to push them back. We could definitely use the additional firepower." The police lieutenants looked at the Humvees. "I think we can hold them back with these." "You say these are .50 calibers machine guns?" "Yep. .50 cal snipers seem to kill these monsters in an instant, so that's good." Andrew rested his hands on his AR. Two Humvees with .50 calories sat in the middle of the intersection, their machine guns aimed down the road. Camp Pendleton, California. V-22 Ospreys lifted off from the airfield. Following them were AH-1Z Vipers. Chapter 113, Battle of San Francisco Part 5, Not So Pleasant Surprise. 1310 June 18, 2020 CE. San Francisco, California. The riveting noise of the .50 calibers machine guns firing reverberated through the air. The lancefishes were collapsing by the dozens into pools of their own purple blood. The sound of the .50 calibers was deafening. Since he didn't have ear protection and the adrenaline from earlier was wearing off, the noise from the .50 calibers was actually awful. Andrew was certain he was going to be suffering from tinnitus for the rest of his life. Other than the SWAT, none of his other coworkers wore ear protection, so they were all pretty much guaranteed this fate as well. However, they had to keep firing in order to keep the monsters at bay. Even 2.50 calibers machine guns were not enough at holding back a tidal wave of monsters. Washington Boulevard, Irvington, California. Luke pulled Hayden to his feet. You sure you can walk on your own? Yeah, just a little woozy. I'm fine. Amidst the commotion of everybody helping each other up and moving towards the door, one of the police officers' voices was being drowned out. Everyone shut up. The building became dead silent. The policeman continued in a raised voice. Listen. If you want to survive, you have to listen. We will be going from building to building until we get out of this area. The other officers are trying to hold the line until we get out. The only exit is through the front door. When you get out, go right immediately and get into the parking lot. Avoid the intersection. I don't believe any of you will be dumb enough to run into the middle of a battle, but I repeat, do not go left into the intersection. We will be ducking behind this building for cover, so go fast. When you get into the parking lot, start moving towards the neighborhood behind this bank. Let's go. No time to waste. 1615 June 18, 2020 CE, Washington, D.C. time. Outside the White House, Ronell looked at the crowd of reporters gathered in front of him. Good afternoon. This morning, as many of you already know, the city of San Francisco came under attack by creatures that we have never seen before. Our understanding of these creatures are limited. We are not certain of their origin. We are not certain if they are intelligent or that we are capable of communicating with them. And we are not certain as to why they are attacking San Francisco. However, we are working tirelessly to understand the nature and origins of such creatures. What we do know is that these creatures do not come in peace. They have attacked the city of San Francisco and its people unprovoked. The battle is still ongoing. Just a few minutes ago, I was in the situation room being updated on the situation. Our first priority is to ensure the safety of the people of San Francisco. Local law enforcement have held off the advance and civilians are being evacuated from the Bay Area. I have federalized the National Guards of California, Nevada, Oregon, and Arizona, and I have directed them to repel the creatures invading San Francisco. The California National Guard have already begun arriving to assist. In addition, I have directed the 11th Armored Cavalry Regiment from Fort Irwin, California, along with 2,200 Marines of the 13th Marine Expeditionary Unit from Camp Pendleton, California, to provide further support. The current situation is still developing and we will provide further updates once more is known. Thank you. And may God bless the United States of America. Situation Room. Stephen gave his update to the President. The Air Force has reassessed the situation and are switching their munitions to long-range cruise missiles in order to take out the enemy anti-air and to bombard their landings on the beach. Direct bombing runs are no longer considered viable due to losses. The Navy is also unable to be deployed in the Pacific due to the fact that there are still landfishes in the water. Do we have any updates on the origins of these creatures? None whatsoever. But rest assured, Mr. President, we will find something. The entire National Special Intelligence Agency is working on it. Well then. The only thing we can do at this point, gentlemen, is to hope for the best. Should we inform other nations of the current situation? Inquired the Secretary of State, Katerina. I was planning to do so, but I'm looking for your approval. Ronell shook his head. Keep it under wraps for now. We don't want them knowing something they can take advantage of. We can inform them later. If they start being attacked, then we will tell them. Ronell sighed and swiveled his head to look through all the screens in the Situation Room. Multiple news channels were in a frenzy over this. Some of the screens showed footage of the monsters in the streets of San Francisco. News anchors talking with almost any person they could get a hold of that was somehow related or could give an opinion on this. 1325 June 18, 2020 CE, Irvington, California. Luke looked around at the houses that lined both sides of the street they were on. Their large group made their way down the street. They could still hear gunshots since they had only traveled about 3 blocks away from the bank. Luke realized that his phone had been vibrating in his pocket for a while now. Looking at it, there were 20 missed calls from his mom. His mom came through the moment it connected. Luke? Why haven't you picked up? Luke paused for a second at his mom's hysterical shouting. Mom! Calm down. I'm fine. Where are you right now? Are you alright? What happened? Why didn't you pick up? Calm down. I'm alive and safe. Perfectly fine, not a scratch. Don't freak, but our bus had engine problems. We had to travel onto the streets and I didn't hear my phone. Were you able to get on another bus? Usually, his mom would pick up on that pause. But she was probably either too panicked to notice that he was lying or that she was just taking it since she understood she probably didn't want to hear the truth. And hey, he wasn't technically lying. The engine of the bus is having problems. More so caused by the bus being flipped than the bus engine itself though. But hey, potato, potato, tomato, tomato. No, Mom, we are currently on foot. We have police officers escorting us and I think we are trying to find a vehicle or something to get us to the evacuation point, San Francisco, California. A guardsman tapped Andrew's shoulder. We will take it over from here. Report to your commanding officer back there. An amalgamation of police forces all gathered in front of their supposed commanding officer. I'm Lieutenant Alan B. Kingridge, in charge of all local law enforcement forces in this intersection. Gonna keep this short. There are people handing out MREs over there. Get some food and rest. You guys have 20 minutes. Then we gotta cycle you guys out so half of the soldiers can eat. Any questions? A city police officer raised his voice. Why can't we focus on just evacuations now that the National Guard is here? There aren't enough soldiers. What we have is just a quick response force from the California National Guard spread out at some of the intersections. More soldiers are coming to reinforce us but they need some more time. So take your break, and get ready to come back. Be glad you are even having a break. 20 minutes later Andrew was getting up from his break when loud shouting from the firing line caught his attention. A Humvee was suddenly flung. It gained some air before skidding on the ground a few yards away from Andrew. A giant metallic spear-like log was punctured through what was left of the Humvee. The second Humvee started reversing, its .50 calibers firing wildly. Fall back! Fall back, Onudariasuga! What the hell are those? The soldiers on the firing line quickly started backing up in an organized manner. Irvington, California. Luke looked around at the houses that lined the sides of the deserted street. One of the police officers pushed past him and went to converse with Mr. Johnson. A few seconds later, the police officer shouted, "All right, everybody stop. We have to hide in these houses. We may have monsters approaching soon." Then murmurs grew as people looked down the road. A sand-colored Humvee appeared there. Luke could see that a soldier manned the machine gun on it. Behind the first Humvee, 3 more Humvees showed up followed by sand-colored trucks. Everybody got onto the sidewalk in order to clear the road. A Humvee without a machine gun on top separated from the convoy and parked on the side of the road near them. The rest of the convoy continued. A soldier dressed in full sand-colored combat gear and carrying a rifle walked out. "What are you guys doing out here? It's not safe here." A police officer went up to him. "I'm Officer Hills Cooper with the Fremont Police Department. We were escorting a convoy of school buses from Sundale High School to the evacuation point at Levi's Stadium. However, one of the school buses was overturned by one of those monsters. These are the kids from that school bus and we are trying to find another vehicle to get us to the evac point." Sergeant David Lumen of the California Army National Guard. The sergeant looked around at everybody. Lem check with my commanding officer to see if they can offer any help. Chapter 114 San Francisco is Lost Part 1. Fleeing. 1345 June 18, 2020 CE Irvington, California. Around Luke, a few sat down on the sidewalk to rest. Luke looked around. It was a nice little neighborhood with a variety of white 1-story and 2-story houses lining both sides. Luke looked to Hayden who was also sitting down. "I'm gonna go listen to what they are saying." David came back from his Humvee. "Sorry. My unit can't spare any vehicles right now," Hill sighed. "Well, thanks for asking." David pointed behind him. "You guys are nearing the Paseo Padre Parkway. There's still a lot of people driving through there. You can probably flag down someone to get a ride. I did see a couple buses which could probably fit all of you guys. Maybe if you are lucky, another bus will pass by." The sound of machine gun fire interrupted their conversation. David looked down the road towards where the gunfire came from. Someone in the Humvee shouted, "Sergeant! They made contact. There's a horde of them." David looked to Hills. "I need to go. I have orders to stop those monsters here. You guys should be relatively safe for now but I do suggest that you guys keep moving." The soldier got back into the Humvee and it drove off. Hills looked at the students around him. Most had sat down to rest. "Okay. Everyone. We will be stopping for a few minutes in order to make a decision. Please take this time to rest whilst we talk with your teachers. I need all teachers and all officers over here." A few, who hadn't lost their stuff, started eating from their lunchboxes and drinking from their bottled water. Luke sat down beside Hayden and hugged his legs to his cheek. Luke took a deep breath. "You okay, Hayden?" Yeah, I'm fine. You think we gonna live? Probably. They sat together without speaking. Luke rummaged through his pockets for his earbuds. To his surprise, nothing came up. He probably dropped his earbuds in the chaos. Chattering filled up the air and Luke fidgeted a bit while sitting silently beside Hayden. He didn't know anybody else around and making new friends would be awkward in this situation. A few minutes passed by for Luke to say anything again. Hayden would usually ignore him. Today, however, Hayden seemed finally able to talk. Although being given the chance, Luke started feeling like he would chicken out. Hayden, I have been meaning to talk to you about this. I know this is probably not the place, and I'm a bit late on this, but we have been good friends since middle school. You kinda stopped talking to me starting. Luke was interrupted. Okay. Everyone. Attention. We are asking everyone to call their parents to come pick them up at the Paseo Padre Parkway. Tell them to pick you up at the Paseo Padre Parkway. For those who can't be picked up, we will find a bus or something to get you guys to the event point. A few minutes later Luke got off of his phone with his mom again. Hayden, will your parents be picking you up? They told me that they are already at the stadium waiting for me. They are gonna try to drive to me though. Oddly, even though they had already walked a street away from where they met the soldiers, the sound of gunfire seemed to be getting louder and louder. Somewhere in the group of 60 or so students, somebody shouted, "Hey, the soldiers are coming back." Unlike the first time they had seen them, the military vehicles weren't in a neat convoy line. Instead, disorganized Humvees and trucks were speeding towards them. The vehicles came to a halt near them. The soldier from earlier that had talked to them jumped out of one of the Humvees. He started waving to everybody. "The monsters are coming. Get onto the trucks. Come on." Officer Hills ran up to him. What's happening? Get these kids onto the trucks. We can't hold off the monsters. Squeeze in as much as you can. People started getting onto the backs of the trucks. Luke spotted something in the sky. A Humvee flew right over them. It clipped a house down the road and smashed upside down onto the lawn of a house further down. Radio transmissions 10 minutes earlier. Shit. This is 2nd Lieutenant George Rowland of 2nd Platoon. We are not able to keep the monsters from reaching the Paseo Padre Parkway in Irvington. I repeat. We are not able to keep the monsters from reaching the Paseo Padre Parkway. What's happening, Lieutenant? I need a sitrip. This instant. The monsters are flinging projectiles at us and we have taken heavy casualties. They have taken out most of our .50 calories Humvees. We need someone to redirect the traffic on the parkway elsewhere. We are not able to hold this position at all. That's a negative, Lieutenant. Don't let them onto the parkway. That's an order, sir. We can't hold it. Don't we have anything on hand? Is there any air support? There was a bit of silence before a response came. Negative, Lieutenant. Air support is unavailable. Enemy air defense is proving too strong, sir. For the safety of my men, my unit is retreating to the parkway. Holding our current position is impossible. We will try our best to protect the parkway for as long as possible, but we don't have the firepower to hold it for long. There was another brief silence over the radio. I will see what I can do. Washington, D.C. Inside the Situation Room, Stephen presented worrying news to Ronell. Mr. President, the National Guard is being pushed back. We are receiving reports that humanoid monsters, description matching the ones we saw on our drone, appear to be throwing projectiles at high speeds towards Humvees and destroying them. Ronell rubbed his forehead. How long until the Marines are there? Within an hour. How much of San Francisco have these monsters taken? Mr. President, Stephen paused. San Francisco may be lost, so you are telling me that an American city will be occupied by foreign forces and that we can do nothing about it? Yes, sir. Even with the responding Marines, we do not have sufficient force to prevent San Francisco from being, well, more infested with monsters than occupied. Ronell sighed. The first wave were monsters. Those landfish things. Whatever that second wave was with the giant humanoids and anti-air toads seemed like a coordinated military to me. 1411 June 18, 2020 CE San Francisco, California. A patrol vehicle barreled down a street lined with stores but devoid of people. Andrew's radio squawked as he made a right turn in his patrol vehicle that nearly tilted his vehicle. He felt his entire body slide to the left. Terry had his eyes wide open at that. Whoa, drive a bit slower. You are gonna kill us. Do you not see the situation we are in? We gotta get out of here. I know, but these monsters aren't that fast. Another message came through the radio that silenced all other radio chatter. All units. Holding San Francisco is no longer viable. San Francisco is lost. I repeat, San Francisco is lost. The evacuation of remaining civilians is top priority. Hold Interstate 280 at all costs. We must keep our only way out open. I guess that's where we are going then. A ringtone started playing in the car. Andrew felt his right pocket vibrate. That must be my kids. Terry, can you fish that out of my right pocket? Answer it and put it on speaker 2 please. Terry placed the phone in the cup holder. I'm here. Hey Dad, Mrs. Gray is making us board a helicopter. Andrew made another tight turn. Keep your younger sister safe. Alright, okay Dad, are you okay? I'm hearing that San Francisco is being overrun. Are you still in the city? Ashley wants to see you. I'm still in the city but I'm fine. I'm with Mr. Gray and we are finding our way out. Just listen to Mrs. Gray. And can you put your sister on the phone? A young, quivering female voice came through. Dad, yes sweetheart, she sounded near tearing up. Dad, I want to see you. I'm worried that what happened to Mom will happen to you. Dad's A-okay. I'm already at a very safe location. Just listen to your brother and Mrs. Gray. Can you give your phone back to your brother, MHM? His son's voice came through. Dad, call me when you get to wherever the helicopter is taking you. Sorry that I can't talk for long. Take care of your sister. I will see you guys soon. Chapter 115 San Francisco is Lost Part 2, The Last Line. 1420 June 18, 2020 CE San Francisco, California. Their patrol vehicle barreled down the deserted street. Andrew held tightly onto the steering wheel. He looked around. Where is Interstate 280? There are signs on the street that will get us there. Can you get a map out on your phone or something? If you stop driving like a maniac, we can just check the street signs. Well, the entire city is being overrun. Who won't drive like a maniac? You are gonna get us killed. I'm driving at only 60 miles per hour and there's literally nobody here. We are way behind everybody and have no idea when those things are gonna get here. Just please check where we are. Terry tapped on his phone. Okay, take the next right. As Andrew rounded the turn, the entire car tilted to the left, its right wheels spinning in the air. Jostled as the car slammed back onto the ground, Terry held onto the door. Jesus H. Christ. A few minutes later in front of them were multiple police vehicles and a Humvee that formed a checkpoint of sorts. See, we didn't need the signs. Next time, if we ever have to do another escape or something, I'm driving. Andrew and Terry got out of the vehicle. A police officer from the checkpoint approached them. You guys alright? Andrew and Terry introduced themselves. We are fine. I'm Officer Andrew Molinis from Richmond Station, Officer Terry Grays, also from Richmond Station, Corporal Anthony White from Mission Station. Did you say Richmond Station? Yeah, why are you asking? Ouch. Wasn't that where the first reports of those monsters came from? Andrew nodded. Oh yeah, I'm pretty sure I was the one who made that first report. You were? Huh? Glad to see you are still alive. Well, surprised to see actually. We need all the officers we can get. Terry looked around at a couple other officers and guardsmen. Can you tell us what has been going on? Nobody seems to be communicating over the radio anymore. They walked towards the checkpoint. I think we switched frequencies or something, but that isn't important right now. It's not going well. The National Guard is in complete retreat. They are trying to reorganize and regroup. We have abandoned most of the city north of here. Anthony pointed southwards. The Ingleside Police Station is now the headquarters. The City College of San Francisco next to it has also become the main evacuation site. The various stadiums there and the parking lot are being used as landing areas for National Guard helicopters to ferry out civilians. People can also drive out of San Francisco using Interstate 280, but we are trying to control the flow of traffic so it keeps moving. And what are we doing here? Our orders are to hold this highway and that evacuation point. We will most likely be the last ones to leave unless the National Guard gets their shit together. I will call someone from HQ and see if they need you guys elsewhere. You will probably be staying here with me though. Irvington, California. Everyone stared bewilderedly at the destroyed and upside-down Humvee. Sergeant Lumen waved at the students to snap them out of it. Quickly. Go. Get on. People started rushing into the trucks. Gunfire could be heard in the distance. Luke soon clambered onto one of the military trucks. The sand-colored tarp covering the back of the truck had concealed how crowded it was inside. The truck was packed with students. Other than that, there was a soldier tending to a wounded soldier lying in the middle of everybody. Luke sat down on the truck bed. He heard gunfire again. This time it sounded extremely close. Screams also came from outside. Luke looked out the back of the truck. A Humvee was driving towards them with a monster following it. 1433 June 18, 2020 CE San Jose International Airport, Forward Operating Base. Colonel Bill Gunn looked increasingly worried as radio messages flooded in. I repeat. We can't hold. The monsters are breaching. The only thing he could do now was order a general retreat. The monsters had heavy firepower with them and easily dealt with a lightly armed National Guard. The heaviest weapon he had currently in his disposal are Humvees, armed with .50 calibers machine guns. He was gonna have to wait for more heavy weaponry in order to turn the tide. A beacon of hope came to him in the form of someone rushing to him with a message. Colonel. The commander of the Marines that are arriving soon wants to speak to you. Is this Colonel Gunn of the California Army National Guard? Yes, it is. My forces will be arriving soon. What is the situation in San Francisco? Thank God you guys are here. The front is collapsing. I currently have at my disposal just about 250 men. We had to throw together what we had at hand since we couldn't get the entire 79th IBCT mobilized fast enough. Our top priority is getting people out. Holding defensive positions is no longer viable for us. My forces in San Francisco have been mostly pushed out and are in disarray. Elsewhere along the Bay Area, my forces are being forced to retreat, but they are still organized. We are also severely lacking in air support since these monsters are shooting down the Air Force with ease. Thanks for the information. I will be taking command once I arrive. AH-1Z Vipers will fly in low to avoid the enemy anti-air and will provide air support. I will patch you in with this squadron commander. 30 minutes later, MV-22 Ospreys landed all along one of the runways of the San Jose International Airport. Marines ran out from the backs of the Ospreys towards the hangars. Corporal Eric Liu was among the Marines. As he got off of his Osprey, Eric looked up just as 3 AH-1Z Vipers in formation flew by overhead. Besides him, Humvees were driving around on the runway of the airport. Carrying his service rifle, the M27IR, he ran with his fellow Marines. Let's go. Let's go. Move. 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 A large number of soldiers crowded the hangar that they just entered. The aircraft hangar had been turned into a command center of sorts. Whiteboards and computers on disks were everywhere. In a rather large open area in the hangar, Marines clad in combat crowded together and filled the space. Captain Dan Martinez, commander of their company, was standing in front of a large whiteboard with a map on it. All right, Echo Company, this is the current situation. To enable easier travel, most of northern San Jose has been cleared of civilians. Across the Bay Area, the National Guard is on retreat. They are the worst hit in San Francisco. The situation there is also the most dire because San Francisco is on a peninsula and can be cut off. The captain traced his finger on a highway on the map. Local law enforcement and National Guard have been pushed back to Interstate 280 and are desperately holding it as the main highway for evacuations. He then pointed at an area on Interstate 280. This is the City College of San Francisco, where they are evacuating civilians via helicopter. This is where this company and Fox Company will be headed to. However, each platoon from Fox Company has been assigned to protect various points along Interstate 280, so they will not accompany you the entire way to San Francisco. Elements from the Battalion Weapons Company will be attached to this company. They will have javelins, tows, and mortars with them. Those will be vital against these demons. We do not know much about these demons, but we do know that they are hardy enough to take multiple rifle shots and can seemingly fling Humvees. This will be a retreating battle. Our goal is to protect the civilians and hold out until more forces arrive. The 11th Armored Cavalry Regiment is a few hours away and will bring heavier firepower. The rest of the 1st Marine Division will be pouring in too. Understood? Let's go kill some demons, Marines. Alright. 1733 June 18, 2020 CE, Washington, D.C. Time, 0046 Sun 48th, 196 AE. Off the coast of the Mock Imperium, a Machian battleship cruised lazily in the waters. It was an old battleship, but it was one of the few battleships that the Mock Imperium had left after its war with America. Suddenly, a commotion occurred on the bridge. Captain, we are suffering from a hull breach and are flooding. Something punctured through the side of our ship. Seal the areas where the flooding is occurring. Is this an enemy attack? We are not certain, Captain. Whatever it was, it seemingly went through one side of our ships and out the other. However, it's not exploding. A few minutes later there's reports of even more flooding. It seems something has punctured our ship again. Captain, we might not be able to control this flooding. Set course for homeport. Contact headquarters. We have to save this ship at all costs. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelis. There you'll find the original version of this story, and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 116 San Francisco is Lost Part 3, Evacuations. 1800 June 18, 2020 CE Washington, D.C. Katrina alerted the president. Our ambassador to the mock imperium has just told me that the mock government is currently in uproar. They are trying to keep it under wraps, but there are rumors floating around that a mock battleship being sunk was the cause for this. A battleship? Did we sink almost their entire navy? According to the ambassador, it was an old battleship bound for the scrap yards that they recommissioned. Ronell sighed. Seriously? They are rebuilding their military. They still seem to be wary of the Magus Imperium. What were our plans for the mock again? I remember we have that queen in power, but I heard she really doesn't want to stay and will be abdicating the moment we give her the chance to. The committee in charge is hoping to split them into multiple republics. They have so far identified 85 or so different possible republics based upon ethnicity, religious background, and other factors. We will most likely have to spend billions of dollars to prop up these countries and ensure stability. According to them, a single republic wasn't going to work because the ethnic and religious differences run deep and may interfere in the processes of a unified democracy. Carlson coughed. Mr. President. Secretary of State. Now is not really a good time to be discussing nation building. We are being invaded. Ronell nodded. Sorry. Yes, Carlson, you are correct. So it seems like these demons have started their attack on the mock imperium. It isn't confirmed, but there is a very high possibility since they face the ocean where they came from. I suppose we are ready to reveal to the world our current predicament. 1500 June 18, 2020 CE somewhere along Interstate 280, San Francisco. Andrew shook his head. San Francisco is really a terrible place to defend. We are on a peninsula being attacked on all sides. I hope we can get out of here soon. Andrew and Terry stood at the edge of the highway crowded with cars. Although their view of San Francisco was blocked by houses and hills, they could see the black smoke rising into the sky from the general direction of the city. Terry looked over. Any ideas of where you are going to go after this? Our homes are overrun by monsters. Where are you gonna live until our military takes back San Francisco? Andrew frowned. We aren't exactly out of danger yet, so I haven't thought of it. Better to start thinking early. It will definitely take some time for us to be able to return to San Francisco. I might go to my parents-in-law's place or try to see if my old home that I sold to that company has been bought yet. Have your parents-in-law forgiven you for? Terry stopped himself as Andrew's face darkened. If you really need a place, my grandpa might be willing to take you. He's an ex-cop and his house definitely has space. Andrew smiled. I might take you up on that offer. I will probably go there too. Huh. I literally just bought my house in San Francisco. I'm not sure if it's still there. Andrew chuckled. Well, now I'm glad that I rented my home. I don't have to pay my rent this month, and I don't own the place, so I don't have to worry about it. Anthony called out to them from a distance. I want you guys over here to direct the flow of traffic. A few minutes later, cars slowly crawled in front of them. Other than one empty lane, the two-way highway was filled with cars going the same direction, out of San Francisco. Andrew cursed at his phone. I haven't been able to reach my kids at all. They are in a helicopter and probably don't have good reception. I can't contact my wife either, but I'm sure she's safe. Andrew looked up into the sky. I promised her that I will protect them. Terry nodded slowly. And you will keep that promise? Don't worry about it. The sound of helicopters could be heard getting closer. Andrew and Terry looked up as military helicopters flew over them. They had to brace themselves as the helicopters were flying so low that the winds from the rotors could be felt. Terry's hat flew off into the distance, but Andrew held on to his. Oh well, there goes my hat. Seems to be attack helicopters from the Marines. Won't they get shot down? We saw what happened to those jets. The military is the military. I'm not sure what they are up to, but I'm glad they are here. Hopefully they are successful. Mission Valley, Fremont, California. It has been going well so far. They had escaped the monsters and saved all of the students and teachers. However, David was still visible with worry as he scanned the surroundings. He was sitting in the passenger seat at the front of his Humvee as their convoy sped down Paseo Padre Parkway in an effort to distance themselves from the monsters. Because of their earlier warnings, the parkway was mostly clear of cars. What really worried him was that his entire group was now just a mishmash of around 24 able National Guard soldiers and a few police officers that had been escorting the high school group. They didn't have any heavy weapons on them, so they couldn't possibly face a horde of those monsters. David was lost in thought, but the sight of helicopters brought him back to reality. His second lieutenant came over the comms. There was a moment of silence before his second lieutenant talked again. "I can't get Aaron on the comms." David looked behind him and didn't see the last truck. A curse word floated through his head. A few minutes earlier Luke closed his eyes and took a couple deep breaths as he rested next to Hayden. He rubbed his head. He was sick and tired of what had been happening so far and wanted to go home. Luke's mental complaints were stopped because he felt a force suddenly fling him forward as the truck came to an abrupt stop. Then he felt an impact that caused the truck to veer to the left. Luke sat up coughing. He literally had enough of this. This was the second vehicle accident he had in a single day. What the fuck, not this again, a voice shouted a couple seconds later. "Everybody get out. Come on. Wake up," including Luke. A few others walked out of the back of the truck. A lot of people were still unconscious inside the cargo bed of the truck. A girl looked around. "What happened?" "I don't see another one of those monsters." Looking at the cab of the truck, they instantly found the answer. A red sedan had slammed into the side of the truck. The airbag had been deployed and the driver of the red sedan was slumped onto it. Luke sighed as a few went to investigate. Luke shouted to one of the boys who went to the cab. "Are the soldiers at the front of the truck all right?" The boy had opened the door to the cab. "One of them is unconscious. The other is." The boy looked away and into the street while covering his mouth. That was enough for Luke to understand what happened to the other. Luke and a couple others pulled out the surviving but unconscious soldier. A rifle dropped out from the cab. More people gathered outside the truck as more had regained consciousness. There were murmurs amongst everyone. "What do we do now? Holy shit. That guy's dead. This is bad. Where's the rest of the convoy?" A screech filled the air and they all became quiet. Luke slowly turned to the right and realized why the car had slammed into the truck. It was trying to escape one of the monsters. Much smaller than the other monsters they had seen, it was looking at all of them with its red eyes. Its black pupils switching between them. Its spear-like nose swung around. Luke gulped. Everybody stood in silence and didn't dare move. None of the soldiers were conscious. There were no police officers or teachers in their truck either. They were just a bunch of high school students. The monster started galloping towards them. Luke panickily looked around. His eyes darted everywhere. There was a rifle on the ground but he had no idea how to use it. Everybody was frozen in fear. Luke shut his eyes and braced himself. Chapter 117 San Francisco is Lost Part 4. 1523 June 18, 2020 CE Mission Valley, Fremont, California. In his mind, the world seemingly slowed down. "I am so dead." That thought coursed through Luke's brain as he saw himself in slow motion raising his hands in an instinctive yet futile effort to save himself. He knew for certain that the spear of the monster would pierce right through him. Then everything, suddenly, went back to regular speed as gunshots went off beside him. Luke's hands went from futilely shielding himself to quickly covering his ears from the piercing noise. He blinked and looked to where the gunfire was from. Standing just on his left, Hayden had grabbed the rifle on the ground. He fired another burst into the monster. The monster stopped charging, staggered a bit and roared. The bullets clearly were hurting it. The creature turned its attention towards Hayden, its red eyes seemingly burning with hatred, and began its charge. Hayden, with a face that showed no panic, looked down the sights of the gun and fired a few more shots. This time, the shots hit the monster's skull as purple blood flowed down its head. The monster slowed down as if in shock and collapsed. Luke stared in amazement, instantly forgetting about how close he was to becoming a meal. Holy shit. You know how to shoot a gun. Luke looked towards the dead monster. What the hell was that? Holy shit. This is California. Where did you? Hayden had a sheepish smile on his face as he rubbed his neck with his left hand. My grandparents live in Arizona. Getting a gun there is very easy. I have been on the range there every time I went. You didn't strike me as someone interested in guns. It was nice to shoot targets and get away from the problems in my life, a classmate interrupted them. I don't want to disturb you guys' conversations, but we have more problems coming our way. They looked down the road where the dead monster laid and couldn't believe their eyes. From further down the road, a dozen red, seemingly pissed off eyes stared at them. These ones were much larger than the one they had killed. They moved slowly towards them, seemingly incapable of going faster due to their size. But it was certain that they were pissed. Hayden pulled up his rifle in position and aimed again. Steadying himself, he hit the trigger of the rifle. Instead of the expected gunshot sound, nothing happened. He hit a couple of times and then blinked. TCH, no ammo. Do any of you see any magazines lying around? Everybody started looking around on the ground. As Luke looked around, he noticed that most of the students had finally recovered from being knocked out by the crash. Hayden called out again. Check the soldiers. They should have ammo on them. Quickly, Luke tapped Hayden's shoulder. Hayden. I think they are slow enough. We have to run away. Hayden looked towards the monster and then turned his head back to Luke and the others. Are any of the soldiers awake? The injured one is awake, but I don't think he can help us that much. We need some people to carry the soldiers. Together, a couple students tried to lift the unconscious soldier from the front seat of the cab. I found some ammo. Catch! A magazine was thrown at Hayden and he caught it and slammed it into the gun. Just as Hayden aimed to fire, fiery explosions blinded him and Luke. The grounds where the monsters stood tore up. Everybody stopped to look at the scene in front of them. The shrieks of the dying monsters could be heard. In their panic to leave, they didn't hear the whirring helicopters above them. Two gray-colored military helicopters hovered overhead as bullets spewed from them. Holy shit! Attack helicopters! The firing soon stopped and not a single one of the monsters stood alive. Trucks from their convoy pulled up. Are you guys alright? A few minutes later. There are too many of these monsters and we have multiple wounded. We are currently evacuating civilians that we found during our retreat. Number of civilians, it was just the earlier reported high school students with their teachers and police escort. About 60 or so people. Good work, Second Lieutenant. We cannot spare both helicopters, but one will provide overwatch and follow your convoy. Continue your retreat. We are, at the insistence of the teachers, traveling to Levi's Stadium. Continue on for Levi's Stadium. Marines are moving out just south of there. You will be able to be reinforced there with other elements. Will do. Above them, one of the two helicopters banked to the right and flew away, whilst the other stayed above them. Somewhere in the Pacific, a towering humanoid stood among the various creatures scurrying around. The ground was barren dirt that showed no signs of life and the sea surrounded their island. A soldier came up to him and bowed. We had fesumens. It was irregular so she could barely understand what he was saying. The soldier rambled on in what was to her, gibberish. The more developed one was, the less they were capable of understanding the less developed. Those ranked at the bottom of development, the beasts, actually didn't even have a language. It was a sort of instinctual understanding of noises. She couldn't understand much of what those ranked lower than the enlightened said, but they could understand her. The beasts only understood how to take orders from their lord and act on instinct. Although inferior in mind, she actually really liked the beasts. They were good at giving hope to the humans that they were fighting a mindless horde. In reality, the true horrors awaited. She calmly waited for the soldier to finish before she looked to her advisor, an enlightened, on the right. He has said that our invasion forces to the west are facing stiff resistance. It seems that the humans of this plane have peculiar weapons. Has this impeded the advance? Not at all, Great Lord. The beasts are advancing, albeit slowly. My fellow enlightened advise you to allow our greatest creation to ascend, then we shall unleash it, by your will, Great Lord. 30 minutes later a roar vibrated throughout the island and the ground shook. 1850 June 18, 2020 CE Washington, D.C. The first of the Marines are arriving. Mr. President, get me in contact with their commander. I want to speak directly to him. A few minutes later the man on the screen saluted. The background showed that he was in a hangar at an airfield. People in uniform scrambled around. Colonel Henry Weiss, commander of the 13th Marine Expeditionary Unit, at ease, Colonel. Before Ronell could say anything else, Henry spoke. With your current numbers and with more reinforcements, Mr. President, General, Ronell interrupted. No, I don't want what the general said. I want your honest opinion. As a commander on the ground, what is your say on this? With my current numbers, no, not at all. Colonel Gunn of the California Army National Guard has informed me about these demons we are facing. Unless we bring in armor, we will be pushed back. Even with more reinforcements, especially armor, it will still be a hard fight. Ronell nodded slowly. Thank you, Colonel. Somewhere in the Magus Imperium, Nick shook his head after coming out of a briefing. What the hell is happening back home? San Francisco under attack, Brian nodded. They are trying to get us back home as fast as possible, it seems. Nick scratched his head. The information they gave us wasn't much? Is there any way we can find out more? Well, seeing that we don't have internet or cellular because this world hasn't developed it yet, no. Well, it shouldn't be long before we go back home though. They are rushing Marine units back. We will be there if whatever invading San Francisco is truly a threat, Nick snorted. If we get sent there, then something's wrong. There's an entire Marine Expeditionary Force there. Chapter 118, A Ray of Hope Part 1. 1610 June 18, 2020 CE San Jose International Airport, Forward Operating Base. Eric stood among his platoon listening to 2nd Lieutenant Ryan Scottfield as he gave them a more detailed briefing than Captain Martinez. We will be deployed to defend whatever parts of Interstate 280 that are still being held in San Francisco. We will be backed up by 3rd Platoon. An anti-armor squad, a tow squad, and a heavy machine gun section will be joining us as well. It seems like the LAV-25s just got here on time, so we may have them at our disposal. Private First Class Gregor Edwards, a grenadier in his squad, looked at Ryan with questioning eyes. Did the captain say we will be facing demons that can throw a Humvees? Yep. So that will be all our forces? Yep. Other than disorganized local law enforcement and guardsmen, yes, 1st Platoon will be busy securing the evacuation sites in the City College of San Francisco. As the captain said, Fox Company will be keeping our rear together so we can get the heck out if things go to hell. What about Galf Company? They got sent to East Bay cause those things are over there as well. Any other questions? Everybody stayed silent. Ryan sighed. I know that this is the first time some of you have had odds so stacked against you. Some of you haven't even seen combat before. But just like hot good old Chesty, who once commanded our specific battalion, once said about communists, we are 1st Marines and not all the demons in hell can overrun us. Ooh. Let's make him proud, boys. Interstate 280, San Francisco. I want all officers to defend that street. Do not let a single one onto the highway. Andrew tapped Terry on his shoulder. You hear that? I think that's our cue. Come on. As Andrew and Terry got closer to the on-ramp, the sound of rifle fire got louder. They had to weave and squeeze through the cars that were bumper to bumper on the highway. Andrew's eyes darted around looking at all the people in their cars. An elderly couple in a sedan, a family of 4 in an SUV, a clearly pregnant mother with her son sitting right beside her. Most of them were looking towards where the sound of shooting was coming from. Most had fear and worry on their faces. Some looked at them with a bit of hope. They hurriedly ran off the off-ramp and onto Monterey Boulevard. At the three-way intersection in front of them, the one where Acadia Street went into Monterey Boulevard, multiple officers and a few guardsmen with a Humvee were laying down withering fire. Andrew fired his rifle as the Lancefishes had appeared. Since Acadia Street was an uphill road, the first thing that always appeared was the Lancefish's nose. A small mound of monster corpses were already forming at the top of the road. Because there were also houses on both sides of the street, it was the perfect choke point for funneling these creatures. A few minutes later. There's too much of them. Besides Andrew and Terry, Corporal White shouted into his radio. The situation on Acadia Street is stable. I can send a couple officers. White turned towards them. Andrew. Terry. I need you two to get into your cars and get to Forester Street as fast as possible. Shit. Andrew's police car screeched to halt. The Lancefishes had clearly pushed past the mouth of the intersection. Officers and guardsmen were still trying to hold on to the middle of the boulevard. Andrew and Terry got out of their cars and opened fire while shielding themselves using the car doors. Although the car doors were completely useless if the monsters came barreling down towards them, it gave them a sense of safety. Terry shouted while shooting, where the hell are those attack helicopters from earlier? I don't know. Reloading or some shit? It didn't take long for the Lancefishes to notice two guys shooting them in their vulnerable sides. 3 monsters turned towards them. Aw fuck. Explosions rocked the ground in front of them. An attack helicopter flew in a straight line down Forester Street, rockets spewing out of it onto the monsters below. The sound of its minigun could then be heard. Fucking hell. They took their merry time to get here. Cheers and hoops rose out of the men on the intersection. Some even waved at the helicopter. 1635 June 18, 2020 CE Interstate 280. Near Daly City, a convoy of 16 Humvees led by 2 LAV-25s sped down Interstate 280. In the lanes beside them, civilian cars crowded them. His squad commander, Sergeant Julian Shelton, commented on it. "Good thing they kept this lane open." Eric looked over his shoulder. "Could we have used the Ospreys and flown over this? Something about them being needed to get more guys and stuff over here. The situation at the front is also not that clear at the moment, so they don't know where we should be dropped off. On that note, we should probably slow down once we enter San Francisco. Don't want to run into one of those things." 1940 June 18, 2020 CE 1120 Sun 48, 196 AE Primopolis, Magus Imperium. In the throne room, magician officials lined both sides. Jimmy stood in the middle and Emperor Arstant sat on his throne. "Does your nation need any assistance?" "The Magus Imperium would be glad to provide it." Jimmy shook his head. "My government fears that these creatures may be preparing to land on the shores of the Mock Imperium. We would like to request your nation's assistance in defending against them once they do arrive there. Our country would only be able to provide limited support to the Machians, and we fear that these monsters may overrun them." Arstant frowned. "What sort of assistance?" "Boots on the ground. We are hoping that you will send your military to bolster and help the Magus." Rubbing his beard, the Magusian emperor contemplated the request. "I am afraid that is not possible. To support a nation that had been our arch nemesis and the greatest threat to our sovereignty for 120 years would only cause an uproar in my court, my populace, and my soldiers. On top of that, these monsters may land directly on my country, requiring me to have the full might of my military available. We are certain that these monsters will not be landing directly in your country, as they have only appeared in the seas facing the Mock. I do understand your first sentiment. But if these monsters trample through the Mock Imperium, who will be its next target? This is a matter of your country's own safety. You could prepare until these monsters arrive on your borders, but the damage will then extend to within your country." Arstant fidgeted around as if agonizing over the issue. Multiple expressions flashed through his face as he gave it thought. "Give me some time to discuss this with a few of my most trusted officials. These monsters have yet to appear on this continent, so it does not seem urgent. I will see what I can do. Thank you." "Before you go, the offer for support to your country is still on the table. That is the least we can do for your country, helping us defeat the Mock." Washington, D.C. A group of aerial photographs were laid down in front of Ronell. An aide explained what they were. "Mr. President, we have spotted something rather massive 100 miles off the coast. We have some photos via satellite, courtesy of the National Spatial Intelligence Agency, and we are also sending a drone over it." Ronell held one of the photos in his hand while scratching his head. "A giant dark red rectangle. We think it's some sort of massive radar system. We are detecting signals from it. It's likely what they have been using to detect and help shoot down our aircraft." Chapter 119 A Ray of Hope Part 2. 1945 June 18, 2020 CE Washington, D.C. Ronell looked to Carlson. "If we destroy it, is it possible to regain air superiority? We aren't certain, seeing that we don't have a clear picture of how their anti-air systems work. We do believe it will degrade their air defense capabilities. Then what are we waiting for? I want missile strikes on that thing this instant." Carlson nodded. "The bombers are already in the air. They should be firing their cruise missiles soon. We will get visual confirmation of the damage through the drone." "Good. Anything else to report?" Katrina got Ronell's attention. "The ambassador to the Magus Imperium recently finished up his audience with Emperor Arstant. We made a request, but he seems reluctant in helping the Mock Imperium. Figures. We will be giving out a detailed report about the meeting later." "Thank you, Katrina. I guess we should consider this another way. Does the Mock need help from the Magus? What units do we have in the Mock Imperium?" Carlson responded to that. "We have 2 National Guard Brigade combat teams operating in the Mock Imperium. The 2nd IBCT, 28th Infantry Division from the Pennsylvania National Guard, and the 56th IBCT, 36th Infantry Division from the Texas National Guard. We also have many forces in transit, so those might not be the final figures. We currently do not have plans in sending additional forces there, though. These numbers are lacking when it comes to defending the entire Mock Imperium." Ronell crossed his arms together. "Should we provide some incentive to get them to defend the Mock? But what could we offer?" Everybody in the room stayed silent at that. After a few minutes, Ronell sighed. I suppose we can consider that later. Carlson, does anyone in the DOD have a clear picture on how many units do we need in San Francisco? We have yet to form a clear idea on the capabilities of the enemy, so there is no actual answer. We are hoping that sending a couple brigade combat teams can push them, Katrina interrupted. Well, on that note, Emperor Arston seemed quite willing to help us, though. The ambassador told me that it felt like the Emperor was quite enthusiastic to offer it. He says, from his experience, he thinks it probably has something to do with us helping them finally defeat the Mach. I won't be surprised if there's a part of Arston that fears that we could make demands from him since we helped them quite a lot against the Mach. 1645 June 18, 2020 CE. Somewhere in the middle of San Francisco, a humanoid stood in the middle of a street. His height was comparable to that of a one-story house. He looked down at what was below him. These humans are using quite strange weapons. Quite different from the ones we faced in our world. He looked at his second-in-command, Shvik, a regular who was the most intelligent amongst the regulars he commanded. Yes, VGHNG. Agree much? Think they advanced. We careful. Still pray. VGHG picked up the object at his feet and flipped it around to what he thought was its upright position. He studied it. The four round things that were at the bottom of the object touched the ground. A memory flickered in him. The humans in his world would put round things on their wooden boxes in order to move them. He could barely remember because no humans existed anymore in his world. This object was different from the wooden boxes, seeing that it was made of metal. A human weapon also sat on top of the hatch of the object. It spewed out stuff that caused pain. VGHG thought up a name. Metal box with four round things at bottom and human weapon on top sounds like a good name for this human weapon. Shvik didn't care about the metal box with four round things at bottom and human weapon on top at all and only stared hungrily at the dead humans inside. They're still human inside. He grabbed it and shook a human out of it. He then grabbed onto the body and put it into his mouth. VGHG looked at Shvik with mild disinterest. You still eat them raw? You should really try them cooked. No cook. Hate cooked. Taste bad. Interstate 280, San Francisco. Andrew looked around and shouted. Anybody got any spare AR-15 ammo? I'm out, someone shouted in response. Catch, thank you. The attack helicopter had only provided relief for 10 minutes before being forced to retreat in order to refuel and rearm. But with a lull in the monster's advance, they had been able to retake the entire intersection. Andrew had his back against a wall as he reloaded his AR. Shit, how much longer do we have to hold out? The monsters don't seem to ever stop, a guardsman close to him answered. Until all the civilians are evacuated. Now less whining and more shooting. As Andrew got back to shooting, he noticed that in the short time he had spent talking to the guardsman, the Lancefishes had gotten closer. Shit, they are getting through again. Where are the fucking helicopters? 30 minutes later they were barely holding the intersection. They had plenty of ammunition gathered, but the sheer number of the Lancefishes meant that the monsters inched forward little by little. There also seemed to be some intelligence in the Lancefishes. Instead of letting the bodies pile up, they seemed to have been purposefully moving them aside in order to not block their advance. Sweat dripped down from Andrew's head as he fired from his rifle. He had no idea how long he had been fighting for, but he was growing seriously tired. Then, what sounded like four pop rivets vibrated through the air. The forwardmost Lancefish instantly collapsed as purple blood sprayed out of it. Andrew looked to his left to see an armored vehicle with a turreted cannon. The cannon on the armored vehicle fired more continuous shots at the monsters. Behind the armored vehicle were multiple Humvees. The military vehicles drove into the intersection and fanned out. Soldiers poured out from the Humvees and opened fire on the Lancefishes. A few hoops erupted amongst the tried police officers and guardsmen. Andrew breathed a sigh of life. Finally, the actual military arrived. The guardsman beside him chuckled. Hey, we are Army, too. Says so on our patch. Be glad that we were here too, or you guys would have been toast. Andrew chuckled. I know. Just a joke. A soldier got out of the Humvee and walked in the middle of the intersection. He shouted over the noise of the gunfire. I'm Second Lieutenant Ryan Scottfield, commanding officer of 2nd Platoon, Echo Company of the 2/4th Marines. I would like to speak to the officer in charge here, a guardsman responded. I'm Staff Sergeant Joe Sneeder. I believe I'm the highest ranking one at this intersection. Do you not have a platoon leader with you? A lieutenant, there could be a guardsman higher ranked than me along this street. I'm not sure. We lost organization during our retreat, a policeman interjected. Well, the chief of police is still on the radio and is basically the one giving commands. Well, mostly just giving us instructions. The guardsman just joined up with us. We can contact him for you, the Marine nodded. I think it's actually better to patch him through to our expeditionary unit commander. 10 minutes later, Andrew's radio crackled. This is Chief of the SFPD, James Hawthorne. I would like to say that you have all gone above and beyond your duties to protect the citizens of San Francisco. Although we have been bolstered by the Marines and National Guard, we are not certain if it's enough to hold these monsters off. We will need some officers to stay and fight on the front lines. Of course, this is not mandatory. And I will not force anyone to do so. Those who want to stay and fight, stay and fight. Those who do not want to stay and fight, we will need you to help with the evacuations at the City College of San Francisco. No matter if you stay or not, every one of you are heroes. I am proud to serve with the finest men and women the SFPD have ever had. I will be staying at the Ingleside police station until the last officer has been evacuated. Andrew glanced at Terry. I think it's time for us to go. Well, you can stay if you want, but I got 2 kids who will be orphans if I don't get back to them. Terry nodded. Yeah, I'm not interested in playing a hero right now. Eric looked around. Quite a few of the police officers had decided to stay and fight. The fire from their LAV-25 kept the Lancefishes at bay. Behind him, 3 LAV-25s sped by, on their way to help the other intersections. Ron the Black Cat. Guess how I named the monsters demons? Chapter 120, A Ray of Hope Part 3. 1735 June 18, 2020 CE. Parking lot of the City College of San Francisco. Andrew parked his police car on the road next to the parking lot that was being used as an evacuation site. Helicopters were lifting off and landing. From what he could see, all sorts of helicopters that they could get a hand on were being used. He could also see a mixture of soldiers and police officers trying to barely organize the situation. A soldier spoke from a megaphone while standing on an elevated platform. This is a reminder to all to keep your baggage to the minimum. We are allowing 1 suitcase per person. We are trying to evacuate as many people as possible. As Andrew and Terry walked onto the parking lot, they heard an argument breaking out. A man with a backpack and holding on to 2 suitcases was arguing with 2 officers. I'm getting on with all my stuff whether you like it or not, sir. You are not allowed onto this helicopter with all that. The man let go of his suitcases and fished something out of his backpack. Oh yeah, what you gonna do about huh? Anybody wanna steal my stuff? Huh? He started waving around a knife at the officer. Guns were quickly drawn at him. Sir, drop the knife, the man started shouting. I want to have all my stuff with me. More police officers surrounded him. Sir, drop the knife or you will be tased. The man started moving forwards. Shut the fuck up, last warning. Drop the knife, taser. 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 The man fell to the ground spasming as a taser hit him. Quick, detain this man. Andrew shook his head as he watched the scene unfold. Good grief. They quickly found and reported to the police captain in charge of all local law enforcement at the evacuation site. We just got here from Monterey Boulevard, part of the defenses then. Terry nodded. Yep. Got relieved by the Marines. Good to hear. We could definitely use more hands to keep this place under control. Andrew pointed to the unconscious man that was being detained. Was that incident common? The captain nodded his head grimly. We had a fair share of troublemakers. 2 idiots came in waving pistols. They got gunned down. They stopped talking as a news helicopter carrying 5 people lifted off beside them. San Jose, California. As they got closer to Levi's Stadium, the traffic got worse. Luke looked out the back of the truck. Their helicopter escort was gone. There were people crowding the streets and even onto the roads, making their way to the stadium whilst seemingly carrying all that they had. Some wore their dress shirts and ties with barely any luggage, as if they had just gotten off of work. Parents held on to their children, who mostly had just their school backpacks. No one had been prepared for such a sudden evacuation. Their convoy of trucks and Humvees came to a stop. A soldier appeared at the back of the truck. Okay, everybody off. Traffic is gonna get worse from here on out. We got orders to link up with another unit, so this is where you guys get off. One of Luke's classmates looked outside of the truck. Where are we? You guys are on the Great America Parkway. Just follow your teachers and those police officers further down and you will get to Levi's Stadium. Their teachers were already shouting at everyone and gathering the other students. "Everybody, please stay together. Get into contact with your parents." Luke and Hayden joined the gathering of high schoolers. One of the teachers of the other classes was talking to Mr. Johnson. "My husband and son are already here, so I'm gonna be going first." Mr. Johnson nodded. "You go on. We can handle it." 1803 June 18, 2020 CE Interstate 280, San Francisco. The street was eerily quiet. The lancfish corpses that littered the street in front of them made it impassable for regular people. Near the end of the horde, the monsters had to climb over their dead comrades in order to advance. At some point, the monsters seemingly just stopped and retreated. Eric looked around with suspicion in his eyes. "I don't like this," Lance Corporal John Felder sighed. "Yet, we still haven't seen those humanoid monsters yet." "What do you think?" Second Lieutenant Ryan nodded. "We got reports that some of our helicopters were shot down trying to go deeper into San Francisco. Rocket streaked from the Viper that was doing overwatch for them." Eric looked up. "What is it shooting at?" Ryan shouted. "The humanoid things are approaching. Everybody get ready." Eric was confused as he saw the attack helicopter bank hard to the left. It soon became clear why. Something streaked past the helicopter's right side at extreme speeds. "Holy shit. Did you see that, Lieutenant?" "The fuck?" More of the object streaked past the helicopter as it tried to get out of the way. Ryan shouted again. "The humanoids are throwing some stone lances at it. They don't think they can dodge all of them and are retreating. I see them. Fire. Fire. Fire." The LAV-25s opened up with its autocannon. Ryan looked over. "Shit, it ain't having an effect. The rounds were just not penetrating these monsters." The humanoid monsters were a terrifying sight as they clambered over the dead lancefishes. They had reddish and jet black skin, were about 1 to 2 stories tall, and had muscles like bodybuilders. They seemed just like what one would imagine a demon as. Some were carrying shiny, black stone lances. Backblast, a javelin missile shot towards the monstrosity. The missile shot towards the sky and soon came back down on top of the monster. The monster looked up as he sensed it. The javelin missile blasted the monster's head apart. Purple blood and guts exploded from it. The headless body of the giant monster stood for a few seconds before collapsing to the ground. This gave all the humanoid monsters a pause as they looked at their fallen comrade. "Keep those javelin missiles coming." San Jose International Airport, forward operating base. In the aircraft hangar that had been turned into a command center, a radio message got Colonel Weiss's attention. "The evacuation point at Levi's Stadium is at risk. We need units down here. Get me in contact with the commander of the 11th Armored Cavalry this instant." A few minutes later. "Is this Colonel Timothy Wades of the 11th Armored Cavalry?" "This is Colonel Wades. We are currently en route to your position." "How far out are you currently?" "We are about an hour away." "Are there new developments?" "We need your assistance at San Jose. The monsters are arriving on the beaches of San Jose and will be threatening a major evacuation site at Levi's Stadium. I do not have enough forces at my disposal if a horde appears." "Understood. I will send out a detachment that can reach you faster. They will be infantry though. Anything will help." Colonel Weiss turned to one of his aides as he got off the radio. "Get me in contact with the Air Force and the Attack Helicopter Squadron Commander." Chapter 121 A Ray of Hope Part 4. 1810 June 18, 2020 CE Interstate 280, San Francisco Lookout. The LAV-25 backed up just in time as the stone lance embedded itself into the ground where the LAV just was. The LAV didn't stop firing at the demons as it repositioned itself. Its turret turned to keep the gun facing the demons. The demons started throwing even more lances at them. Eric jumped out of the way as a lance landed a few feet from him. The shock wave from the impact knocked him to the ground. He coughed as he dealt with the after effects of slamming into the ground. "What the heck?" As he got up, he saw a rocket from an AT-4 slammed into one of the demons and blew off its right arm. Around him, the voices from his fellow soldiers seemingly mixed together. "Fucking hell. Keep firing, shit. It's no use." He watched as a guardsman started screaming as he shot his M249. He didn't let go of the trigger as he focused a firepower on the demon. He suddenly got slapped on the back. The bullets had absolutely no effect on the demon as it continued marching towards them. "Snap out of it, Eric. Keep shooting." More lances soon rained down on them. The second lieutenant shouted at them. "They ran out of lances. Keep them back. They aren't that fast. We can hold them off." One of the larger demons roared. The sound was deafening. And then the demon started charging 0205 Sun 49th, 196 AE into Stropolis. Mark Imperium Pomponia looked quite unhappily at the American diplomat, Chris Wilkins, as he explained his visit. My government requests that you begin evacuating your civilians from the shore, especially the land facing the area where your battleship was sunk. This is for the safety of those civilians. Pomponia nodded. I will see what I can do. Chris frowned. Pomponia, I'm serious. This is not a request but a demand. Chris, I have heard that one of your major cities is under attack. Chris paused. That is correct. My colleagues have announced it. Pomponia sighed. Some anti-American factions are seeing this as the perfect time to strike. I have no idea how much control I have right now in my government. That is concerning to hear. I'm not certain how much aid I can provide on political issues. But rest assured that my nation has enough military force in your country to put down any possible rebellion. It is vital to keep in mind my government's demands for evacuation. It is for your citizens' safety. I understand that and I will do whatever I can to get them away from there. Chris bowed. Thank you. Chris began to turn to leave but Pomponia stopped him. I would like to ask something. Go ahead. How much will your military be helping us against this new threat? We have not recovered from the last war with your country. Our forces are being sent home in order to help with defense, and we are garrisoning multiple military bases across this continent in order to keep the peace. We may not possess enough military power in your country to stop those demons. But rest assured, we have a solution. Pomponia raised an eyebrow. May I hear what kind of solution it is? Chris decided this was the perfect opportunity. It is on a need-to-know basis only. This is why I am requesting the evacuation of civilians near the shore. Pomponia narrowed her eyes. Seeing that you are insisting on evacuations, how dangerous is this solution? Chris kept a straight and unchanging expression as he stared at the Queen. Sorry madam, it's classified. I'm sorry but this is still my country no matter how much I want to step down. They stared at each in silence for nearly a minute. Please keep your citizens away from the shore where those monsters land. Those that refuse will face the consequences. Have a good day, Your Majesty. 1830 June 18, 2020 CE near Levi's Stadium, San Jose. Do not rush or panic. All pedestrians, stay off the road. For those in vehicles, we still have space in the parking garage. Do not leave your vehicles in the middle of the street. If Luke started to tune out the officer that was shouting through a megaphone at them. It was just the same message over and over again. According to what he heard from others, they were outside a convention center. It seemed to have been turned into a help center of sorts. The police officers that had been with them have left but 2 out of the 3 teachers, including Mr. Johnson, remained. They were talking with soldiers for some reason. Luke studied the sign in front of him. Hyatt Regency, Santa Clara. Hayden commented on it. Yet, a hotel, HM? Ah, I see. I guess it's nearly time for us to go find our parents. Yeah, also, you wanted to talk to me about us being friends earlier, weren't you? Luke scratched his face with a slight frown. Yeah, you know how much you started hanging out with Jackson when we started high school. Yeah, I just thought you won't think of me as cool anymore. What? Why? Jackson kinda threatened me. Seriously? Yeah, what did he say? Hayden kept quiet. Luke looked back at the sign. I won't press you on this. Look, I don't give a damn what Jackson says. I mean, look at what you just did today. You literally saved my life, dude. Thanks, I mean it. We are gonna see each other after all this is over. Shouting behind them disturbed their conversation. Stay clear. Stay clear. The road, full of people and cars, started parting. Hayden tapped Luke on the shoulder and pointed further down the road. Look at that. Multiple tanks and military vehicles drove past them. Cheers erupted from the crowds. Whilst waiting for entrance to the stadium, Luke noticed something in the sky and pointed at them. Hey Hayden. You see those, in the skies near Levi's Stadium? Bomb them to hell. Roger that. Near Levi's Stadium, San Jose. Hayden pondered to himself. I think those were fighter jets dropping bombs. Luke widened his eyes in shock. The monsters are already here. What do you think they are bombing? Thinking about it, where was the Air Force when San Francisco was being overrun? I didn't see any. 2140 June 18, 2020 CE Washington, D.C. Carlson got off his phone. The missiles are approaching the target, Mr. President. The drone has eyes on it. The screen flickered on as it showed the live feed from an RQ-170 that showed a huge dark red mass in the ocean. It's huge. How many missiles did we fire at it? 40 JASSMs are headed directly for it. Chapter 122 Holding on. 1850 June 18, 2020 CE America Center Drive, San Jose, California. The lead Abrams came to a stop in the parking lot. It swiveled its turret to the right. Fire! The tank fired towards the beaches full of lancefishes. The shell found its target as a lancefish's head was blown off and its remaining body collapsed. The machine guns on the tank started firing, punching holes into the creatures. The lead tank moved into the parking lot, which still had a couple cars parked here and there. Behind it, Abrams, Bradleys, and Humvees poured into the parking lot. Some of the lancefishes have already reached the asphalt of the parking lot from the grassy beaches. One was even beside the massive glass cube building that had the sign Hewlett-Packard Enterprise on its top left. A tow missile streaked out of the Bradley towards the forwardmost lancefish, its autocannon pummeling the second closest one. Soldiers rushed out of the open doors of the Humvees and the back of the Bradleys. We cannot let them break through. There are hundreds of civilians at Levi's Stadium behind you. Air support is also available. Levi's Stadium. After a bit of directions, the students found that their parents had all been waiting together at a western end of the football field. Luke found his mom first. She looked very tired. "You all right, hun?" Luke smiled. "Yeah, I'm fine. I'm a bit tired." His dad chuckled and he ruffled Luke's hair as he approached from behind. "You have definitely seen better days." Luke didn't resist at all. He felt all energy leave his body as he embraced his mom and dad's hug. His dad let go first. "We still need to get out of here. Come on, I know you are still tired, but I got a backup of your stuff. Here. We are boarding the next helicopter we can get in." "Neat." You got my laptop. In the middle of the field, various helicopters were taking off and landing. 100 miles off of San Francisco, 40 JASSMs cruised through the air at subsonic speeds. There were anti-air frogs on top of the creature that started firing its grape shot into the air. However, the JASSMs were skimming the ocean surface. Bits of the creature's flesh erupted and flew off in chunks as the 1,000-pound armor-piercing warhead slammed into the right side of the massive block of flesh. The creature started moving and wiggling as if in pain. Then it finally stopped and started sinking into the ocean. March Air Reserve Base, California. A drone operator had an aerial view of Oakland, California. An MQ-9 Reaper was circling right outside the suspected range of the monster's anti-air. His officer nodded as he got off of his radio. "We got to go ahead, approaching their air defense zone. Let's see how far this drone can go." "Understood." Minutes passed as the drone got closer and closer to the San Francisco Bay. The officer got onto his radio again. "We will be proceeding to check out the airspace over San Francisco. The skies should be ours." A few minutes later, Nellis Air Force Base, Nevada. "Seems like that thing was some sort of radar system. We got the all clear for Oakland and we are pretty certain that also means their air defense is down in San Fran." The colonel who was in charge of the base screamed to the men in the room. "You heard him. Get all the planes off the ground. We are sweeping these things out of San Francisco." A few seconds later, the voice over the comms chuckled. 1903 June 18, 2020 CE above Lafayette, California. An E-3 Sentry, an airborne early warning and control aircraft, circled Lafayette, California. A surveillance operator rubbed his eyes and looked closer at his radar screen. "There's an unidentified aircraft approaching from the ocean. It's huge. Sir, we need to contact command." "Look at the size I'm reading from this." The tactical director got onto the comms. "It will reach San Francisco in an hour and a half. It seems to be something that is 1,500 feet wide and 500 feet long." 2230 June 18, 2020 CE Washington, D.C. Ronell sat back in his chair, exasperated at the news he received a couple minutes earlier. "Do we have any idea what that massive thing is?" "We have just received satellite imagery of it. It's a dragon. Its coloring is similar to the monsters in San Francisco. Based on the data from the E-3, it is possible that it has a wingspan of more than 1,500 feet and a length of 500 feet. It has a wingspan of about 8 Boeing 747s. If it reaches San Francisco, the amount of destruction it can cause will be horrific." Ronell sighed. "One thing after another. How long do we have?" "An hour and a half." A few minutes later, General Schmidt of the U.S. Northern Command appeared on screen. "General, I want everything on hand that can intercept the thing to intercept the thing. Mr. President, I already understand the situation and we are working on it. The Air National Guard and the Air Force will be responding in a moment's notice. Rest assured, we will do everything in our power to shoot that thing down. Fresno Air National Guard Base, California. With the not yet setting sun in front of them, F-15Cs and F-15Ds of the 194th Fighter Squadron lifted off from the runway of the airport. Hill Air Force Base, Utah. F-35s of the 388th Fighter Wing sat on the tarmac. An officer shouted at the ground crew as he walked past. "Get it into air beast mode. There's a massive air target approaching San Francisco. Let's go. Let's go." The ground crews rushed to attack missiles onto the F-35s. Missiles were loaded into the internal load bay and onto the hardpoints on the wings. 14 AMRAAMs and 2 Sidewinders were loaded onto each F-35. Washington, D.C. Ronell tapped his hand on the desk. "How long till we engage it?" "It's gonna take about 10 minutes for our first wave of aircraft to have the target within missile range of the AMRAAMs. The Air Force and Air National Guard will be intercepting it. We are not sure how much of an effect the AMRAAMs will have on it, but hopefully enough ordnance can kill it." 1945 June 18, 2020. CE Forrester Street, San Francisco, California. "Everything north is basically overrun," Eric spoke into his comms after listening. "I'm with Lance Corporal John Felder and Corpsman Ian Stevenson of the same company. We are currently behind enemy lines. Specifically in a house on Forrester Street. Can anybody get us out of here?" "Negative, Corporal." The voice sounded very familiar. "Second Lieutenant." "Yes, Corporal. The entire 2nd Battalion has been pushed back. You guys are cut off. It's impossible to get to you. You will have to figure something out." Eric had his back against a wall and he looked to the other two. "We have to retreat. We are cut off." Ian was kneeling on the ground tending to the wounded John. "Let me finish patching him up. You alright? That's a bad-looking head injury. Do you see how many fingers I'm holding up?" John nodded. "Yeah, Doc. 2, 'tis but a scratch." Ian chuckled. "I think you may need to get your head checked if you are quoting Monty Python. But yeah, you seem fine enough." John laughed back. "Let's get our asses out of here." Eric peeked out the window beside him. "Well, we can't go through the front cause a fucking monster is outside." John stood up and responded. "Let's try the back door." "Alright. Be quiet when exiting. We don't want to alert the damn things." Eric slowly opened the back door and peered out. "Clear. It's a fenced-in backyard. Should be safe. Let's go." They exited the house and into the backyard. Eric peeked over the fence. "It's just all backyards. There seems to be a street on the right, but we are gonna need to vault over multiple fences, and I'm not sure how safe that street is." If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelis. There you'll find the original version of this story, and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 123 The Dragon. 1955 June 18, 2020. CE. A few miles east of San Francisco, 52 F-35s closed into their firing position. Ahead of them, 24 F-16s were about 20 miles away from the Dragon that was closing in on San Francisco. Nearly 100 AMRAAMs launched from the F-16s. The swarm of AMRAAMs cruised over the Pacific Ocean. Right ahead of them, a massive Dragon with a wingspan of nearly 1,500 feet flapped slowly towards San Francisco. Explosions blanketed the entire wingspan of the Dragon. Peterson Air Force Base, U.S. Northern Command Headquarters. Lieutenant General Doug tapped his chin while watching the large screen in front of him. Behind him, a number of soldiers were on computers with a variety of maps open. The Lieutenant General turned to General Schmidt. "The missiles from the F-16s had no effect. It's continuing towards San Francisco. I can see that. So it took the brunt of nearly 100 AMRAAMs and not a thing happened to it? Were any of the missiles shot down?" "We are certain that almost all missiles hit their target. The E-3 is reporting that it seems to be moving faster. I think we only pissed it off." 10 miles west of San Francisco, more than 700 AMRAAMs from the F-35 streaked through the skies over San Francisco, all headed towards the Dragon. This time, the explosions were much more numerous. The Dragon reopened its eyes after the onslaught of missiles. Its piercing red eyes shone through the smoke of the explosions. A roar filled the air and the ocean. 2305 June 18, 2020. CE Situation Room, White House. MR. President, General Schmidt is reporting no effect at all. Ugh. Shit. Get me the general. The screen flickered on and General Schmidt could be seen in his command center. "General, MR. President, we are preparing for the worst. We have a Patriot battery being set up to try to shoot it down. We are hoping that the bigger warhead would have an impact. Carlson shook his head. That thing took on nearly 30,000 pounds of explosives head-on. What would a battery of Patriot missiles do? Then do we have any other option? A silence filled the room. Carlson leaned forward in his seat and clasped his hands together. The nuclear one, 2010 June 18, 2020 CE, a few miles east of San Francisco. You have 30 minutes before a massive dragon will reach the area, a pilot in an F-35 got on his comms. Permission to engage with guns and the sidewinders, request denied. The thing is gonna reach San Francisco if we don't kill it. Hundreds of AMRAAMs didn't do anything to it and you expect guns and sidewinders to do anything? You are just gonna get yourself killed and waste your life for nothing. Return to base. That's an order, understood. America Center Drive, San Jose, California. We are barely holding the line over here, understood. Please await further instructions. An AC-130W Stinger II's 105mm cannon rained down onto the Lancefishes below as it circled the battle. The soldiers and vehicles on the ground didn't let up on their fire. Without ranged weapons, the Lancefishes couldn't do much but mindlessly surge forth. Two F-15Es passed over the horde while unleashing a cluster of 16 small-diameter bombs from each aircraft. The radio crackled. Air support at Levi's Stadium will remain available unless the Dragon changes direction. The pulverized corpses of thousands of the Lancefishes littered the beach and the pavement, but there seemed to be a tidal wave of them as they continued walking ashore. An A-10 swooped in with its signature BRRRRTTT coming from its rotary cannon. As it passed over the horde, a variety of cluster and regular bombs dropped from its wings. Explosions rocked the jet-black tidal wave. As soon as the aircraft passed, the Lancefishes surged into the places where their brethren had just been obliterated. Let's try the new shell out. Gunner. Amp. Airburst. Up. Fire. On the way, the round exploded in front of the horde, scattering fragments onto the Lancefishes. Nellis Air Force Base, Nevada. Colonel Todd listened to the orders while visibly upset. What do you mean ground all aircraft? I just got them into the air less than 30 minutes ago, a voice replied over the phone. The colonel seemed like he was about to throw the phone across the room, but he put it down. Damn it. We finally got them up in the air, but now we need to ground all of them. 2310 June 18, 2020 CE Situation Room, White House. Ronell shook his head. Are you insane? We are basically nuking San Francisco at this point, Carlson countered. Won't the Dragon cause destruction nonetheless? A nuclear bomb will be resigning every single person still in San Francisco to death. Only an utterly idiotic person would suggest such a thing. With a Dragon, we might hope for people to escape. We aren't sure what the Dragon is capable of. What if it could breathe fire that could be comparable to a nuke? Ronell frowned. Why do you want to use a nuclear bomb on American soil that much? This is a last resort weapon. We may no longer have restrictions like we did on Earth, but throwing nukes around without a care in the world is not something I want to do. That Dragon requires a last resort weapon. What if we threw a low-yield nuclear bomb at the thing? Won't that still have the consequences of fallout affecting thousands of people? So what if a couple thousand civilians get cancer or leukemia? We will save millions by destroying that thing before it gets to San Francisco. Ronell became silent. Somewhere in the Pacific. What do you mean our communications with our invasion force have been cut off? SOAR should have been positioned far from the battle. Great Lord. We are pretty certain SOAR has been destroyed. SOAR is such a massive entity. It couldn't have been that quickly destroyed. The humans have weapons that causes explosions. That seems to have been what happened to SOAR. What about the next army? Our next army should be approaching in a couple hours. They have airf with them. We will re-establish contact once they arrive. The Great Lord walked to a team of enlightened who were fiddling around with an aquatic creature of this plane. She observed them. One of them poured a purple viscous liquid into its gaping mouth. The reddish skin of the aquatic creature turned jet black and seemingly hardened. One of the enlightened had an obsidia, a smooth black metal, in his hand. It was forged into a spear-like shape. The enlightened proceeded to place the obsidian spear on the front of the aquatic creature. A purplish liquid oozed from the altered creature onto the obsidian and secured it. They placed the creature back into the ocean and crowded around. The creature floated back up and was soon motionless. One of the enlightened who noticed her approached her. Great Lord. The aquatic creatures of this world are too weak for modification, so it seems we are certain we can find a stronger being to re-engineer. I don't care. Just make something useful. Thank you, Great Lord. 2010 June 18, 2020 CE Hearst Avenue, San Francisco, California. We are only a couple of blocks from the City College of San Francisco. We just have to avoid getting caught. They were pressed up to a wooden fence in somebody's backyard. Eric peeked over the fence. The street was empty and there was a school building across from them. We should probably get into that school building. Are you sure, Eric? We have to cross an open street. I don't see any of the monsters here. Is there nowhere else we can hide? The only thing across from us is the school building. That's the only way we can get to safety. Ian stayed silent and nodded. They could still hear heavy amounts of gunshots, which gave them hope. Chapter 124 The Destroyer of Worlds. Now, I am become death, the destroyer of worlds. J. Robert Oppenheimer, father of the atomic bomb. 2315 June 18, 2020 CE Washington, D.C. By the time we get the bomber in the air, it would have already reached San Francisco. General Schmidt nodded at Carlson's statement. Mr. President, the Air Force is planning to strike it again, the president sighed. We already fired 800 missiles at the thing and it did nothing. Carlson crossed his arms. At least most of San Francisco is evacuated, the president shook his head. We are not nuking San Francisco, Carlson. We are not nuking a fucking major American city, for Christ's sakes. Just because there's an overgrown flying lizard in the city, it could possibly breathe fire. We aren't in a fantasy. The president stopped himself and sighed. We aren't certain of its capabilities. 2020 June 18, 2020 CE Sunnyside Elementary School, San Francisco, California. The three soldiers all dropped to the floor the instant a roar shook the building. Ian frowned. What the fuck was that? Eric Whisper shouted. It's the dragon. Keep your head down. John looked at the two. Dragon? I forgot to tell you about that when it came over the comms. You were still unconscious then. Yeah, there's a dragon on its way here. John frowned deepened. And you didn't tell me why. Well, we are trying to sneak away from some monsters much closer to us. We just need to focus on getting out of here. Dragon didn't seem that important. Eric peeked out the window of the school building and looked towards the dimming sky. For right now, we should probably stay in here and see what happens. Just then, Eric caught something. With what was left of the dimming twilight, he could make out a massive dragon. It flew right over them and it was terrifying. Although a completely different form, it was obvious that it was related to the monsters on the ground. The building seemed to quiver as it passed overhead. 2325 June 18, 2020 CE Washington, D.C. We have reports that the dragon has passed over San Francisco. It hasn't landed anywhere. If it keeps going, it's headed straight for Nevada, the president sighed. Where is it going if it's not stopping in San Francisco? General Schmidt frowned. We are not sure, to be honest. So far it has been flying in a straight line. It hasn't changed direction that much. We are expecting for it to continue that route. Carlson immediately perked up about that. Nevada? Aren't our nuclear testing sites over there? Yes, they are, Secretary. We can nuke the thing when it passes over one of the sites, can't we? Won't it minimize the damage caused? Will it pass over the Nevada test site? General Schmidt nodded. Interesting proposal. Mr. President? If the Patriot missile system fails, then we won't have many options left. President Ronell rubbed his forehead. What will the collateral be if we nuke it in the Nevada test site? General Schmidt nodded. I'm gonna get someone on that. In the meantime, the Patriot missiles have been set up to shoot it down into the San Francisco Bay. We will be seeing what happens in a few minutes. 2030 June 18, 2020 CE 30 miles east of San Francisco, across the road from a worn-down gray barn, 6 Patriot missile launchers sat in a field overgrown with golden and green wood-like vegetation. The sound of crickets echoed through the night. It's approaching the bay. We are ready to fire at your command. Fire. 6 missiles exited from the launchers, leaving a plume of dust around the launcher. The missiles streaked across the darkening orange sky. The crews stared at the radar as it tracked the missiles streaking towards the dragon. All confirmed hits, no effect on target. Fuck. Pack up and relocate. We are not sure where it's going, but we are not sticking around if it's trying to find what shot it with missiles, but we can try another volley at it. The thing got hit with fuck ton of missiles. I heard command has decided to smack it with a nuke in the test fields in Nevada. We were just here as a last-ditch effort. Our orders were clear. Hit it and then bugger off. The trucks hooked themselves to the radar and the Patriot batteries. The Patriot batteries had little effect on it. Mr. President, what do we have about the nuclear option? It's going to pass over the training range instead of the test site. If we use a low-yield nuclear device, there won't be much damage and the fallout won't affect any large population centers. We just have to evacuate the surrounding towns. How many people are in the surrounding towns? Tonopah is the biggest with a population of around 2,000 people. In addition to the smaller towns, we would be expecting to evacuate up to 3,000 people. And the fallout? How far will it spread? Most of the land is government land that we used as a training range. Well, depending on the actual yield, the impact should be minimal due to the fact that most of the area is empty. Of course, the area will have to be avoided because of the fallout, but there's usually nobody on most of this land anyway. Then we are going ahead with this? It's impervious to our conventional weapons. This is the only way we can shoot it down. Mr. President, this is our best option. Are we even sure if it's gonna land somewhere? We shouldn't be taking any chances. It will pass through multiple cities that are filled with more people than San Francisco right now. Ronell slumped and sighed. Get me the Pentagon's Deputy Director of Operations and the Commander of Strategic Command? Yes, sir. A few minutes later, a few men were on the screens in front of the president. A nuclear cruise missile with a low enough yield to not cause major destruction to any large population centers, but a high enough yield to kill the thing. An AGM-86B from a B-52 would do fine. It's a W-80 nuclear warhead with a blast yield of 150 kilotons of TNT. However, the question is whether or not it will hit the target since it's an air-to-ground missile. It does have an inertial navigation system with terrain contour matching, but none of those mean it can hide a moving target. Although, with that large of a target, we can probably assume that the missile will hide it. Are we certain? I don't want to have to use a nuclear missile just to have it miss. We can probably calculate where the Dragon will be based on its current speed and direction. Then use those coordinates to set the target. Worst comes to worst, we miss. The nuclear missile detonates on the ground close to it, and the nuclear blast will still at least heavily injure it. Do we not have any nuclear missiles capable of hitting a moving aerial target? We retired those kinds of things in the 1980s. Alright then. I'm ordering a nuclear strike on that Dragon. An aide gave the president a black laminated card. On the screen, the Deputy Director of Operations looked at his card. Tango Delta, the president replied. Alpha Victor Minot Air Force Base, North Dakota. A single B-52 taxied onto the runway of the base. The runway was lit up with lights. Get the B-52 on cart start. We are loading it up with a nuclear cruise missile. The ground crew inserted small explosives into 2 compartments next to 2 of the 8 turbofan engines. Black and white fumes poured out of the back of the B-52s from its engines. The B-52 taxied down the runway and lifted off into the night sky. A nuclear cruise missile launched from the belly of the B-52. Chapter 125, The Hammer Falls. 2105, June 18, 2020. CE sky above Nevada. The Dragon looked around in this foreign, night sky. The sky reminded it of what its world looked like before everything happened. It still remembered the time it was a being of its own. Before the monsters took over the world and made him into this. There wasn't much it could do but listen to the commands. Strangely, it hadn't received anything new, so it was just flying in a straight line. Out of the corner of its eye, the Dragon saw something approaching it. Another one of those weapons. This was a single one of the explosive arrows of whoever it was attacking. However, the explosive arrow was much slower than the ones that had hit it earlier. The Dragon felt the arrow impact its back. Then a blinding light enveloped it. A mushroom cloud formed above where the Dragon had been. 0005, June 19, 2020. CE, Washington, D.C. The president tapped on the table of the Situation Room as everyone awaited the report of the nuclear detonation. Everyone in the room was tired and cups of coffee were everywhere. General Schmidt, who was in his command center, was on screen. A flurry of activity occurred behind General Schmidt. Mr. President. We have confirmation that the Dragon has been downed. A drone will fly over to verify its death. We have strike fighters on standby in case it needs to be bombed. There was mild clapping and a few unhappy faces. They had just launched a nuclear missile on American soil. Even though it was on grounds that have been used for nuclear testing before, it was still a very heavy decision. I want to know where the thing came from. And I want that place blown to smithereens. Also, get someone to check on how bad the radiation around the nuclear detonation is and where it will spread. The EPA is already on that, somewhere in the Pacific on her shiny, jet black metallic throne in the middle of the island. The Great Lord listened patiently as her advisor translated the garbled message of the less intelligent soldier level. Great Lord, We have reconnected communications with our forces in the battle. The Great Lord stood up from her throne. How is the situation? How far inland have we pushed? There seems to be a stalemate. We have accomplished in taking the northern part of the peninsula, but have not been able to advance any further south or east despite our large numbers. What about the dragon? The advisor frowned and paused as he got confirmation from the soldier. Lost contact? You lost contact? Are you still able to detect it? It's just gone. We can't find it or detect it. We are not certain what happened. It somehow disappeared during the time when communications became offline. Her advisor slowly inched away. The soldier had already dismissed themselves. She was not like her predecessor, that skewered all who came with bad news. However, that didn't mean she didn't have anger issues like her predecessor. At that moment, no one wanted to be near her when she sat quietly on her throne. 2045 June 18, 2020 CE Sunnyside Elementary School, San Francisco, California. Corporal Eric Liu looked out of the school building. If I remember correctly, we are only a couple streets away from the City College of San Francisco. I can hear the intense firefight from here. Ian frowned. Won't that mean there are gonna be those monsters swarming in front of us since we are approaching the front line? Eric rubbed the back of neck. They won't expect us to come from behind in the night. Ian shook his head inside. We still need to get through them, and I have no interest in running through a group of those things. And with his head injury, I'm not sure how well John will do. John looked up. I'm perfectly fine, Doc. It just hurts a bit. Then that's bad. That's a head injury. Also, I'm a medic, not a doctor. We need to get you to actual help. Eric sighed. I'm gonna get second lieutenant on the comms and see what they can do. Eric got on his communication device. I'm listening. We are approaching the City College of San Francisco from Forrester Street and hearing heavy combat. Is there any path we can take to get to you guys? Negative. We are holding the line, but monsters are swarming the place. Is there any way you can make a path for us? Lance Corporal Felder is a bit banged up with a head injury and may need medical attention. No reply came for a few seconds. Okay, Corporal, I will see what I can do. In the meantime, are you able to check on how many monsters are on Forrester Street? Got it, sir. A few minutes later, Eric reported what he saw outside from the second floor window of the school. It's a bit dark, so I can't confirm, Corporal. Where exactly are you on Forrester Street? We are currently in a building that seems to be an elementary school. Which type of those monsters are you seeing? The anteater-like ones with spears for noses or the humanoid ones? From the forms, I believe they are the humanoid types. Thanks for the info, Corporal. Go down Forrester Street and in exactly 20 minutes, have yourself right behind the avenue between the rows of houses and the college. How will you let us know that the path is clear? Keep an eye out and just get ready to run. There will be a clear path. 0010 June 19, 2020 CE Washington, D.C. We have confirmation of the death of the dragon. We are confident that the dragon is not alive. A green-tinted night vision video feed was shown from the camera of the drone. In the desert below, a charred corpse of the dragon with half of its wings missing was shown. The aide went on. Since it was an airburst, the nuclear fallout is minimal. However, it is still recommended to avoid a 10-mile radius around the blast zone. Although the towns closest to the nuclear blast were not affected, the EPA has recommended testing the area for radiation, so we will have to relocate a couple thousand people for the time being. Ronell leaned back on his chair. How is the media coverage on this? People are definitely debating about the usage of a nuclear weapon on American soil. Most are still reeling from the invasion of San Francisco. Ronell rubbed his closed eyes. Well, I hope we can weather this storm. Not that it's that important. I kind of just want to retire and go to the beach at this point. MacDill Air Force Base, Florida. General Thompson, our drones have spotted movement on the easternmost shores of the Magus Imperium. It is just as we anticipated. Earlier sightings were most definitely these monsters' reconnaissance forces. How's the situation on the ground? All civilians have been evacuated and the Magusian military is pulling back as instructed. We will wait as more of these monsters advance inland, then we will hit them. Somewhere in the Pacific. She had calmed down immensely from her anger. She had found her scientists tinkering with another aquatic species of this world. Great Lord, we are gonna use the toy that you guys has been so excited about. How many of them do we have? We have 5 in total. You are certain it won't have any effects on our forces? Just the humans. Yes, we have done extensive testing on both our own and the humans. Early tests had a very bad effect on our own and many died, but with later improvements it has proven extremely lethal to humans and non-lethal to us. Can they be ready before our second wave of forces land? The gate has to be fully cleared so we can transport them across. But we believe they can be ready before our second wave arrives. End of this chapter. Thank you very much for reaching the end. Don't forget to like. Looking for more exclusive content and immediate access? Subscribe to our Patreon. Remember, every like, subscription, or donation encourages us to continue. Thanks to everyone. See you in the next video.